Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Fanfiction podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. Today, we're diving into a brand new story. Damage 6, The Renard Bunny Part 4, by Nuri_Kairos_Arcadia. Before we jump in, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Out to Bell besides the three women wrapped around his arms, it was the man's metal hand. I required a woman to carry out my mission. That is when Tanjiro and the other two crashed the party. Seeing as they kept accusing me and wouldn't let go of the matter, I decided I'd take the three of them with me instead. And honestly speaking, I'm glad I did. All three of them fought admirably, and I know I wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. My wife wouldn't be here if not for Tanjiro, and Aoi would have likely died if she had come instead. Was it that bad? Bell tilted his head curiously, wondering just how hard of a battle was fought. Yes. My wives had went ahead to scout and gather information when I lost contact with them, so I decided to take matters in my hand. Dressing the three over there in women's clothing, they infiltrated the brothels there to look for any traces of demons. And a demon we found, well, Tanjiro did. An upper rank moon. Though ranked 6th, the demon was extremely strong and troublesome. The main reason behind that was that it was two demons in one, Gyutaro and Daki, and in order to defeat them you had to cut both their heads off at the same time. While Daki was relatively weak, Gyutaro was the complete opposite. He was incredibly powerful, and his blood demon art, their special ability, was extremely deadly. By the time I arrived on the scene, Tanjiro was holding his sister, who was a demon at the time. The two had been battling Daki for a while. Nezuko's transformation into her bigger form, however, had caused her to go berserk. Luckily, Tanjiro managed to stop her before she could attack a human. Nezuko sheepishly smiled in shame hearing that while her brother pat her head. As Yuzue-san said, I was holding Nezuko back when Daki appeared, walking towards us. Luckily, Yuzue-san arrived just in time and sliced her head off. It was then that we learnt that Daki wasn't the only demon, as she didn't disintegrate despite being beheaded. Sprouting out of her back was Gyutaro, who finally revealed his form. Unlike Daki, who was a beautiful woman, Gyutaro was a deformed man, so skinny he was practically only bones. Wielding two sickles, he unleashed a flurry of attacks that devastated the building. Are you serious? Musasha looked at Elise as like she was crazy. Yep, you heard me. Rose wants to get pregnant with Belle's child. And you're fine with that? Elise smiled just as brightly as she always does and nodded. Of course. We can't give Belle the family he needs right now, but Rose can. She is neither an adventurer nor member of a familia. Unlike her, we can't get pregnant because we'd end up unable to fight. Rose, however, is now 28 and wants to be a mother. So, what better choice than to have Belle knock her up? I would have thought you wanted the first child. I'm fine with giving birth to the second one. Kaguya, though, had a few reservations about this arrangement. Are you sure it's a good idea for Belle to be having a child at his age? Well, Belle is responsible and mature, but it is a lot to be thinking about, and I haven't told him yet. That's why it probably won't happen for a while. There are larger issues to be thought about as of right now after all, but I wanted to put it out there that Rose will probably end up getting knocked up soon enough. Musasha was shocked about this, but looking around she could see that only Shinano and Ryu looked uncomfortable with the idea. Neither Kaguya nor Tsubaki looked displeased, and even Artoria just maintained her stoic demeanor despite the news. Akagi, on the other hand, seemed turned on if anything. I can't believe this. Oh, come on. Don't be like that Wani-chan. Someday you will be one of the women who ends up carrying his child in her womb. Masashi's face immediately lit up like a candle, her face now redder than a cherry. The idea was almost blasphemous to her, and it ended up making her sputter like crazy. Without the ability to make coherent phrases, she simply gave up and shut up, feeding the already wide smug on Akagi's face. I'll remember this. I know you will. This and many more. Bell had been riding on a roller coaster of emotions when he heard how the battle between the demon slayers and the two demons went. He could only imagine what he would have felt if he had been in Yuzue's place, powerlessly watching as a demon holds your wife by her mouth and gets ready to crush her head. What if it had been him? At any moment in the dungeon he could find himself in the same position, having to watch as Elise vanishes from his life and he can do nothing about it. Just the thought crushed his soul and heart. That's why I'm indebted to Tanjiro. Honestly, I still remember that day as if it was yesterday. Flashback, he vanished. Tengen had just finished deflecting all the blood sickles after kicking Tanjiro out of harm's way. Looking around, though, he couldn't find any trace of the demon. Tengen-sama, behind you. Hearing the warning, he rapidly reacted and dodged the sashes that began attacking him, forming a dome around him. He could barely get her name out before being forced back by one of the sashes that came too close to hitting him. "I'll draw the belts toward myself. Tungen-sama, please don't mind me." The woman launched a set of kunai, trying to give her husband as much breathing space as possible. "Go look for the Dadash." She never finished the sentence, though, as a hand roughly caught her mouth. Neither of them had seen Gyutaro moving, and it was now too late. "Well, you have a lot of nerves. I'm sure going to mind you. You hear me?" His annoyed voice was laced with venom, and his eyes were wide in anger. "Hinatsuru." Yuzui tried pushing forward, but with the sashes getting in the way, he could not move, as getting distracted for just a moment would result in a deadly injury. The belts began moving faster, tightening the dome around Yuzui until the gaps became smaller and smaller, and his eyes could no longer see Hinatsuru. That's when he had another memory, just like the lunch at his family's grave before he had to deflect all the blood sickles. He was watching the plains as it was basked in the red rays of the descending sun. As usual, Makio and Suma bickered while Hinatsuru stayed quiet with a smile just like him. Her sudden giggling, however, broke up the fight and attracted everyone's attention. "Tungen-sama, after defeating an upper-rank demon, let's withdraw from the front lines and live as ordinary people. Though we were raised as shinobi, and though it won't bring back the lives we took, we still need to set things right somewhere along the line, or else we'll never be able to hold our heads up as long as we live. When that day comes, not all four of us might be alive, but no hard feelings, right?" It was so out of character of her, but her words rang truer now than ever before. His heart dropped as reality set in, and the possibility of that future becoming true drove him to a desperate attempt to save her. Leave her alone. He could hear the creaking of her bones about to break. That's when, in a lightning-fast motion, a blur weaved forwards, leaving behind an arc of water and fire interweaved. It was in the blink of an eye, and neither Gyutaro nor Yuzui saw or reacted to Tanjiro as he sliced through the hand and swiftly snatched the violet-eyed girl from the demon's grasp. That was lightning fast. "But you're exhausted. You can't do that again." Just as the deformed man went after Tanjiro, Yuzui, now free of the sashes, snuck behind, aiming for the neck. "Kamadu, Tanjiro. You have my gratitude." The battle that followed was both breathtaking as it was terrifying. Bell listened as he felt the excitement of such a fight, but also the blood-chilling reality of losing those close to you. Moments like those where Inosuke was stabbed through the chest and Tanjiro turned to Yuzui to see him on the ground, his hand cut off and his body motionless. The moment that the entire area was destroyed as glows of pinks foreshadowed the catastrophe to come. Bell was amazed to hear that Tanjiro, despite the situation, despite the demon mocking him and breaking his fingers, he still tried what he could to give everyone an opportunity to finish off the demon. At that time, Yuzui and Inosuke, both thought dead, got up and surprised everyone as they swung their blades at Gyutaro and Daki. Together they turned the desperate situation into a hopeful defeat of the demons, but as fate would have it, that was not to happen. With the sun rising, the two demons turned to running away rather than killing the demon slayers. Shocked, Tanjiro and Yuzui gave chase, but exhausted they could not catch up to the fleeing demons. Unfortunately, that meant that Gyutaro and Daki lived. The hours passed until it was late in the evening. The three familiars had all gathered and had just finished dinner when the story reached its climax. Bell, along with the Astrea, Takemikazuchi, and Amaterasu familiar who didn't know of the story, carefully listened as the demons attacked the hidden smithing village. How Tanjiro, alongside Muichiro, Kanroji, Nezuko, and Genya, had finally and for the first time killed two upper moons. What came after that, however, was Nezuko's conquering of the sun as a demon and the final battle between them and Muzan. When Nezuko conquered the sun, all demons suddenly vanished. Knowing that the final battle was looming closer, Obuyashika-sama decided to sacrifice himself. In order to lure Muzan out and give us a chance to strike him down, he used himself, his wife, and the two eldest daughters as bait. Once Muzan stood before him, he set off the trap he had prepared and blew up the estate he resided in. All members of the demon slayers saw this and rushed onto the site. Filled with rage and hatred, everyone arrived on the battlefield. "Who is Obuyashiki?" Answering him was Tengen, who for once showed no flamboyant nature, holding nothing but respect for the fallen man. Obuyashiki Kagaya was the 97th head of his clan, a clan cursed with an illness because their family had given birth to a demon. Muzan Kibutsuji. Every man in his family never lived past the age of 30. In order to break this curse, they had to slay the demon. He was also the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, and we all respected him greatly. We can never forgive ourselves that despite his sacrifice we could not bring down Muzan. Never forgive ourselves. Bell's dilemma still plagued his mind, but for now he decided to focus on the story that Tanjiro was now continuing. Standing by Musen's side now were only 6 demons, including Michikatsu-san and Akaza. 7 if you were to count Gyutaro and Daki as 2 different demons. While Musen was healing from the explosion that engulfed him, several Hashiras as well as Tamayo rushed onto the site and attacked him. Tamayo launched herself at him and like Obuyashika-sama she sacrificed herself to hold him in place and weaken him, using the blood demon art of another demon as well as letting Musen absorb her fist, filled with different poisons. But just as we expected, Musen recovered quickly. No matter how many times you cut off his head he wouldn't die. The only thing that he had not conquered was the sun, which meant that the only way to kill him was to expose him to the sun. Driven by their emotions, the demon slayers let Musen trick everyone to rush him before making us fall into the Infinity Castle, his base of operations. All demon slayers were trapped inside and separated from each other. Me and Gyu met Akaza. Muichiro, Shinazugawa, Genya and Himejima met Michikatsu. The 2 former demons were met with many curious looks from the members of the other familia, wondering what happened for them to be here. To keep things short, me and Michikatsu fought them with everything we had, but these battles served to wake us from our delusional states and face reality. After I was defeated by Tanjiro, I tried to force myself to rise and defy my own death. That's when I remembered my past and why I became a demon. I understood that continuing down this path was not something I wished. I sought to reach the peak of martial arts, of strength. But he had defeated me fair and square, so I decided to put an end to it and accept my fate. It is then that I remembered that in the first place, the reason I sought strength was to protect my wife. After losing her, however, I lost myself in my rage and strayed from the path I promised my father-in-law and my wife to follow. I should have died that day, but Tanjiro's kindness saved me. Eventually, with Amaterasu-sama's help, I was able to return to being a human. Michikatsu, too similarly to me, got his waking call from his opponents. In the heat of the battle and the wills of his descendant Muichiro, he for the first time saw what he became. A monster. In his jealous pursuit to reach perfection and best Yorichi in his swordsmanship, he had lost his way. The silent sibling for the first time since he joined the group spoke up. I regret leaving behind my wife and children more than anything else. Without a word I abandoned them to fend for themselves. It is disappointing how it took me 300 years and a defeat at the hands of my descendant in order for me to realize this. I also regret being responsible for young Sanemi's brother death. While I did eventually see reason, it was too late by then. I had sliced him in half and his demon power ran out. To my great shame, he bled out in front of Sanemi. There was a somber silence, but he continued as the gray-haired man said nothing about his lost sibling. The only other thing that I regret is causing my brother to suffer, knowing that I turned into what I was because of him. And I could never be more grateful to both him and Amaterasu-sama for forgiving me and allowing me a second chance at life, to be better, to be a greater person, worthy of the familia. Those listening couldn't help but feel the tears and the smiles at the heart-breaking moment. However, while me and Akaza betrayed Musen, we were combat ineffective and Muichiro was severely injured. That still left 5 strong demons as well as thousands of demons that Musen created with the strength of a lower moon to deal with. And as fate would have it, one of the new demons that just joined was a disciple of the previous thunder-breathing Hashira. Regretfully once again, it was I who turned him into a demon. His master, who is also the master of Zenitsu, committed seppuku when he discovered that. It is why I made it my own personal goal to avenge my grandpa. My heart was filled with a desire to tear him apart. Kaigaku, to me he was an unforgivable person. He betrayed grandpa and let him die a painful and agonizing death. That is why I trained myself until threw up blood. When I met him he had no shred of guilt and he kept selfishly saying he stuck with those that value him right while insulting grandpa. It was unlike anything I felt before. A rage unlike any other that drove me to fight him until I took his head. When Zenitsu finished saying his part, Michikatsu resumed explaining everyone's roles. While Zenitsu would deal with Kaigaku, Kanroji and Iguro with the help of Yushiro faced off against Biwa, the new upper fourth since Hantengu's death. Shinjuro, Yuzui, and Sakonji defended the headquarters where Obuyashiki's eldest son led the operation and Nezuko, who was being turned back into a human, was kept. Shinobu, on other hand, engaged Doma, upper two, and just before she was about to die she was luckily rescued by the timely arrival of Kanao and Inosuke. Meanwhile, Gyutaro and Daki were finished off by Kyojuro and Kanari. In the battle that ensued we had miracles and just as many tragedies. None of the pillars died. Shinobu being the closest as she was nearly killed by Doma. It was a miracle, but the tragedy of it was that hundreds of the lower-ranked members died, torn apart and mercilessly slaughtered. With all demons beside Muzan dead, the time for the final battle had come. With the death of the Biwa woman, the Infinity Castle fell apart and Muzan was forced on the surface. Our job at that moment was to prevent him from escaping and let the sun destroy him. But we failed. A series of unfortunate events allowed him to live. What happened? Just before the sun rose, the enemy, an Antioda coalition, unknowingly aided him. When the castle collapsed, it did not teleport us back at the estate. Instead, it brought us to Nagoya, a fortress city on the front lines. Using the distraction of an invading army, he managed to escape, much to all of our shock. However, there was one thing that kept bugging Bell as he heard the whole story. Wait, then what about Yorichi and Tomo? 2 level 7s could have drastically changed the outcome. Also, the Amaterasu familia had Shinano and the other girls to help know. This time it was Amaterasu who answered for Bell. Unfortunately for us, war broke out across the Far East just as Nezuko conquered the sun. The enemy coalition also have 2 level 7s and several level 5s in their ranks, and with the number of troops they had at their disposal, we couldn't spare any more warriors for the fight. Did the enemy coalition not know of the existence of demons? Did they not have demon slayers? And couldn't they set aside the war to defeat Muzan, someone who is a threat to both you and them? Amaterasu shook her head with a disappointed sigh. They know now. After Muzan escaped, he fled into the northern territory, which is controlled by the enemy coalition. With everything that he had built now destroyed, Muzan has begun spreading demons through the land again. That is how they came to know of it and have now made a demon slayer division just like us, but so far Muzan remains hidden. Our only solace is the fact that he remains unable to conquer the sun. While Bell was just finishing his list of questions for Amaterasu, Michikatsu and Akaza walked up to Takemikazuchi and dove into a Dajiza. Everyone around went quiet as Takemikazuchi looked down at them, his face as stoic as the sword princesses. Me and Akaza wished to apologize. What for? There was a moment of silence before Akaza spoke. Demons need blood and flesh to feed themselves and grow stronger. The younger a person was, the more benefit a demon would get. During the demon outbreak, places with many children were commonly attacked, and there are no better places than orphanages for such requirements, many of which you had made and took care of. Luckily, the hostess had been reserved for the group alone, but the people present were horrified when they heard of the extent of the demon's cruelty. Many children were killed and mercilessly devoured, and in some cases it was even us ourselves who did so. We are responsible for the demons and for our own actions. What we did is revolting. But we can't undo that. We can neither beg nor expect forgiveness for what we did, only to make our honest thoughts known to you. The two didn't dare to look into his eyes, only focusing down on the wooden floor. That's it. An apology is all you have to offer. The two could feel a tinge of panic but had no idea how to answer the question. No, that's unacceptable. You have to make up for it. Without hesitation, Michikatsu offered a solution. With my life if you deem it the solution. Needless to say, no one uttered a word, both surprised and impressed by the man's determination to make things correct. No, that shows and does nothing. It would be no different from you running away from all of this. Is that who you are? And no. The purple-haired man looked down, unsure of how to respond. I'm neither going to complain nor go into any in-depth accusation. So I'll lay it all bare for you, straight to the point so there are no misunderstandings. To me, actions speak louder than words. You can't change what you did in the past, that's true, but it doesn't mean you can't make up for it. And you wish to correct your mistakes. To show me this, I just want one thing. What is it? The silence was suffocating for the two men who were bowing down, still not daring to look up. The only sound produced in the room was the wooden creaking as Takemikazuchi straightened himself and leaned back on his chair. A promise. Akaza and Michikatsu raised their heads and with clear confusion they looked up at the god. A promise. That's right. All you can do now is promise me that you will prevent this from happening again. You are now demon slayers and a member of the Amaterasu familia. It is your duty to protect the people. You can't bring back the dead, but you can prevent any more from dying like they did. You once slaughtered them, now you will be the one who protects them. If you can promise me to give your very life to make they can live peacefully with a smile, that's enough for me. I forgive you. But do not grovel at my feet, carry your swords and show me you mean it. The two silently took deep breaths, Akaza's eyes stained with tears, before Michikatsu, immediately followed by the red-haired martial artist, bowed down to Takemikazuchi. You have our eternal gratitude, Takemikazuchi-sama. Thank you. We swear to protect them. Bell was deep in thought, wondering on the reason and meaning. He could see the troubled faces of the Takemikazuchi familiar members, but none of them said anything. Contrarily, Amaterasu smiled warmly, glad to see that her children's hearts no longer weighed heavily on them and that their doubts had been cleared. He'd have to speak to Takemikazuchi. It might help with his current predicament after all. Bell. Before he could reach Takemikazuchi, someone called out to him. Looking to his right, he saw that it was Musasha. Seeing her, he flinched, which was noted by the girl, but the purple-haired Renard was not here to cause trouble. Oda-san. Musasha. Call me that. Anyways, I wanted to talk to you a little. Oh, of course, Odi Mazesha-san. In private. Oh well, then we can go to the back. I was actually thinking about taking a walk around. I hoped you'd be able to join and we could talk in the meanwhile. Okay. The two then left together, which was not missed by many. Murakami was also in the pub, though contained to a table in the corner. He wanted to stop them or at least follow them to make sure nothing happens, but a glare from Sanemi was enough to keep him in place. Say, you think Musakai will get laid, Kagaya? Please, Akaji. We know Musasha is not interested in Bell romantically. Yet. Fine, yet. But she would never make a move for different reasons. Just to mention too, she doesn't love Bell yet and she would never steal him from Shinano. True. Shinano, despite knowing that what they said was true, couldn't help but suspiciously stare. Particularly after the talk the girls just had. What if hearing all that awakened something in Musasha and now she was getting the jump on her, stealing him under her nose? Shinano, however, shook her head. That was not who her sister was, but more importantly, she was confused by her own behavior. She was so different from what she used to be. She used to be a dream weaver, poetic and almost stoic like Artoria. But over the past few years she gradually changed, as the possibility of another nine-tailed Renard like her existing became more and more concrete. It also didn't help that Akaji was a bad influence on her romantic life. Soon she became desperate to find her destined soulmate. And now that she met Bell, she was hopeful that confessing to him would help her settle back into the personality she knew and was used to. Musasha and Bell were walking in the dark street of Orario in complete silence. The lights from the lamp posts flickered as Bell glanced to his right, her beautiful face emotionless as she looked forward and walked next to him. The boy didn't know what to expect or say and wasn't confident enough to be the one breaking the ice. Luckily, he didn't need to worry about that, as Musasha decided to speak up after they had gotten far enough from the pub. I apologize for the sudden request. Oh, no. There's no problem. But what exactly did you want to talk about? Bell was suddenly grabbed by the shoulders and pushed against a wall as Musasha pinned him between her arms, her chest dangerously close to his own. Bell squeaked and was about to ask what she was doing, but when she called his name, he noticed her tone was serious and her eyes had no playfulness to them. I just need to know. Do you really love my sister? The seriousness did help Bell drop his blush, and when it came to other people's emotions, Bell always took it upon himself to be honest and determined so that they didn't think it wasn't genuine. I don't. To say the answer baffled her was an understatement. But don't mistake this as me leading her on. I like her, yes. She is beautiful both in and out. She is kind and earnest, but also considerate. However, I don't throw the word love around carelessly, nor the word beautiful as a matter of fact. You earn them, and though Shinano showed that her personality is just as beautiful as her appearance, I can't say I love her. That is something I can only say to Elise, Tsubaki, and Kagaya. So far, I haven't even told Artoria yet. The reason I haven't asked her to be my girlfriend is because I feel like I'd be taking advantage of her. I suppose it is her first time feeling these emotions, and I wouldn't want her to be too impulsive with them, but I wouldn't deny her if she were to ask me. Because I know she would have at least thought about them enough for her to be sure of her feelings, and that we can work towards a relationship where I can confidently say I love her. My relationships so far have progressed very rapidly, particularly with Elise. Artoria is the only one who is progressing slowly, having only gone as far as hugging her so far, and I feel like a rapid development wouldn't be good for neither me nor Shinano. Rather, with her, I think the same approach I have with Artoria would be better suited, and I intend to slowly work to that point. Does this answer your question? It was not what she expected. No, it couldn't be further from her imagination from what she thought he'd say, but it wasn't bad. Quite the contrary. This was a far better response than she had ever predicted, and it made her happy that he was taking not only hers but his own feelings in consideration so as to give her sister the best possible experience. With that she had no doubt left. Yes, it does, Belle. For the first time since he had met her, the girl genuinely smiled, replacing what was usually a frown, scowl, or a stoic look. Sorry about this, Belle. I love my little sister and I care a lot for her. She is an amazing person who is kind and considerate, just like you said. Just like an older sister for everyone. So when she crushes on someone, I only expect the best for her. Someone who matches her. Extraordinary in both nature and action. And allow me to say right now that there is no better person in my mind than you. He let a serene smile escape as he thanked her for her support. Thank you, Musasha. But as usual, fate had to intervene in order for the next event to happen. Oh, what is this? Is the princess getting naughty with a stranger on the street? Damn, see guys. I always knew she was a huge slut. Musasha snapped her head to the newcomer's voice and growled, but her eyes showed surprise at his presence. Hidemitsu, what are you doing here? You should be rotting in prison. And perish the thought, this one is my sister's future boyfriend. As a member of the Akechi clan, I will restore our honor by taking you. As for your little Renard there, it's hard to believe that when you're pinning him against the wall, but that's good cause I'd have felt a little peeved if someone took my girl. Musasha, who had brought her tachi with her, now gripped its hilt. Your girl. Keep dreaming. Oh, you will be very soon. You'll be begging for me and the boys here to fill you until you faint, if you catch my drift. Musasha growled ferally and unsheathed her tachi. Belle didn't know what was going on, but he'd help her first ask questions later. Surrounding them was at least 24 men, all of whom must have been between level 1 and 2. The first to act was Musasha, swinging her blade at one of the attackers, slashing them across the chest, though not deep enough to kill them. While the purple-haired Renard fought them, Belle began chanting his shortest spell, and just as he was going to cast it, the leader launched what looked like a scent bag at Musasha. The princess felt the effects immediately, as a warmth spread through her and she felt her heartbeat ringing in her ears. She began huffing and her focus began to waver. The men smirked as their opportunity was nearing, but faded soon enough as the glow from Belle's magic circle was now bright enough for everyone to notice. Tendrils of ice shot out and clasped on everyone, freezing them into human icicles. As soon as everyone was trapped, Belle and Musasha ran off, leaving them behind. Are you okay, Musasha? Musasha. He could see her panting, and the moment he touched her shoulder her whole body jerked. Belle. What's the matter? I'm not feeling good. We should head back to the hostess. No. The sudden shout surprised Belle, but he patiently waited for her to calm down. It seemed like she was thinking about something for a moment before setting for a decision. Sorry, Belle, I don't want to go back right now. I can't go there like this, and I honestly don't think I'll make it there. Is there an inn somewhere here? Lending her a shoulder, he began guiding her. Oh yeah, follow me. The two found themselves in a room they had rented for the night. It had a bathroom, a desk, and a single bed large enough for 2 people. But Belle didn't notice that as he worriedly set Musasha down on the bed. He was looking around the room to see if there was anything he could use to help her, and missed the hazy and lustful look in her eyes. Before he could react, the girl wrapped her arms around his neck and dragged him down on the bed. What? Musasha. The violet-haired woman now sat on top of him, straddling his hips. Her hands slowly explored his chest, her body heaving as she panted heavily. Musasha leaned down until she pressed her massive breasts on Belle, her face inches from his. Musasha, what are you doing? I'm sorry, Belle. I really am. But I can't help it right now. I can't contain myself any longer. What happened? Is this about the bag they threw at you? Yes. In the Far East there is a flower called the Higanbana, which is known across the world with many names like the red spider lily, Lycoris radiata, equinox flower, and so on. What not many know is that it has an incredibly powerful aphrodisiac effect on Renards. Imagine the strongest aphrodisiac you could buy in the pleasure quarter, but 100 times stronger. The issue is that if the sexual desire is not sated, it won't stop. It doesn't go away after a certain amount of time, instead it only grows. Then wait a minute, I'll ask Amaterasu-sama to fetch your boyfriend? I have no one like that. Right now you're the only one I can ask, Belle. That's why I asked for a room. For the 2 of us. I wouldn't have asked you if I didn't trust you, Belle. The white-haired Renard could see the hearts in her eyes as she spoke sultrily. This isn't only about trust. I also like you to a certain degree. Though I don't love you or have romantic feelings, that is only for now. We can change that. The only reason I wasn't interested in you romantically was because of my sister. You're handsome and brave. A hero. Everything I could want. But don't worry about your girlfriends. I'll take responsibility for this mess. But I can't do that. Not unless they consent to this. Sorry, Belle, but that won't do. As I said, don't worry. I'll tell them in great detail how I seduced you and made you breed me Tilda. The word sent a shiver down his back, but something about all of this felt weird. He felt oddly warm as well, his resistance to her slowly crumbling. If you don't want this, just push me away. Stop me. Shove me away. Anything. She slowly inched closer as she spoke, her lips just hovering over his, but seeing, or rather hearing, that he didn't react, she felt herself smirk before pressing down. Her lips found Belle's soft pair, rapidly getting more heated as she inserted her tongue. With heavy pants, she grasped his hand, massaging his ear with her other free one, drawing cute mules out of the white-haired boy. I'm sorry, Belle. I forgot to mention that when female Renards are in heat and extremely horny, we emit pheromones that heavily affect male Renards. They turn you on, like an aphrodisiac. And the same goes for my saliva. By staying in the same room as me and letting me kiss, you have pretty much doomed yourself. But we shouldn't. The look of shock as he turned to Musasha was honestly adorable, but she probably shouldn't say that now. So yeah, that happened. How are you feeling, Belle? I'm feeling a lot of things, some which are not positive. Right. Musasha, what is the chance you are pregnant? I don't know. Normally Renards have like a 0.1% chance to get pregnant, kind of the reason why there aren't many of us. But in a state of heat and the effect of the flower, it goes up to 20%. The issue is that yesterday was completely abnormal. First of all, we did it too many times, and secondly, you are some kind of breeding machine because the amount you unleash when you come is just unholy. Belle blushed hearing that. Then again, he had never before went crazy like that. He did go overboard with Elise, but even then he probably only orgasmed a quarter of the times he did with Musasha. The biggest problem right now was how they'd explain this to the others. Belle, the best chance we have is to just tell them honestly. I'll take responsibility for it. It was my fault. But no buts. Now please help me. I need you to carry me and wash me because you broke my body, and try not to get horny again. After yesterday, I don't think I can handle any more. Blushing, he did as asked and carried her to the bathroom, where he carefully and gently washed her off, though that backfired due to the lingering feelings that remained. It led to a quick romp in the shower. Luckily, they didn't spiral out of control, instead going for a slow and gentle love-making round. After that, nothing happened other than the occasional blushes from the memories of their time together. What is all this about? Amaterasu looked at Musasha and Belle, who sat Caesar-style before the goddess. She had greeted them with a welcome back. About time you showed up. Where did you two go? Only for them to request everyone to be present, though she did notice the unusual blushes and closeness of the two. Murakami was also present, much to everyone's dismay. Apparently Amaterasu wanted him to be there, cause they all understood that whatever they were going to hear was going to be a shocker for everyone, and the noble might just flat out die from emotional overload, which many hoped for. Belle needs to apologize to his girlfriends, while I need to apologize to Belle, his girlfriends, and Shinano. Why? I forced myself on Belle. Astrea and Amaterasu were sipping on tea when she blurted that out, and were now spraying it on the table. The room exploded with reactions, the only remaining calm being Michikatsu. Even Giyu, Yorichi, Inosuke, and Akaza, who normally wouldn't think it was such a big deal, couldn't help but be surprised at the turn of events considering the members involved. Damn, Muzaki, I didn't expect you to actually do that. And here I thought I was the lewdest of the family. Akaji, please, now's not the moment. Belle panicked and immediately stopped Musasha from assaulting her sister by grabbing her hand in an awfully affectionate way, as many noted. Wait. Explain. Explain, Musasha. Explain the circumstances before saying you forced yourself on me, which you didn't exactly. The sun goddess wiped herself with a napkin before nodding. Why, yeah, Belle's right. That first, Musasha. I'm sure there is a reason. So she explained everything that happened yesterday, from the moment they left to the moment where things got a little too steamy and out of control. Most blamed it on the assailants, which Amaterasu and Ganesha swore to send out their members to catch them, saying there was nothing to be done, but some others were still fuming. Murakami and Zenitsu wanted to skin the white-haired Renard, while Shinano looked at her sister with a furious pout. She wasn't amused from the story, particularly as she could pretty much deduce the fact that the two of them had sex for well over 10 hours. So that's why you need to apologize. For having sex with Belle, to the girls, while Belle, you're apologizing for betraying them. Yes, I didn't tell them, and I feel like I cheated on them. The four girlfriends smiled and surrounded him before hugging him tightly. It's fine. Besides, you know I would have given you the green light anyway. Heck, you made me proud, Belle. You bedded another princess. Elise. Belle knew that of course, but it didn't make it right to him. Assuming and knowing are different, Elise, and while you were probably okay with it, I don't know about Tsubaki, Kagaya, and Artoria. But the other three just reassured him with head pats, telling him that it was fine and they weren't mad. If anything, they were glad it was with Musasha and not a random girl. If it had been with a stranger, they'd be furious, with the woman, not with Belle, mind you. I apologize for forcing Belle into this. Elise turned to Musasha and as expected she smirked. It's fine. But man, I bet you enjoyed getting absolutely railed her. Musasha blushed like a tomato, but she did not deny that she did indeed enjoy being loved by Belle, much to the dismay of a few people there. Elise. Everyone reprimanded the captain, who simply laughed it off. But what now? Musasha looked to Elise for answers. What now? I don't know. To me and the girls, the decision lies with you, Belle and Amaterasu, since she is your goddess. You could shove this under the rug and pretend it never happened, kinda hard considering how much you two did it and clearly enjoyed, or you two can choose to take responsibility for each other and much to our pleasure join our little yet growing polyamory. Musasha looked to the goddess, who raised her hands to stop her from even starting a rant. Musasha, while I am your goddess, what you do with your love life is yours to choose. As long as you are happy, I will fully support you. The question now is what you and Belle will do from here. Belle too nodded before turning to Musasha with as gentle of a smile as he could produce. I'm happy with whatever you want, Musasha. Whether you want to be girlfriend or not, I will do my best for you. Though the circumstances were extreme, I'll take responsibility for yesterday. And honestly, I would prefer if you chose to be my GG girlfriend. Musasha felt her heart swelling, but there was one last person she wanted to face, needed to face. Taking a deep breath, she turned to Shinano, slowly looking up into her eyes, but the cold glare made her lose all the courage she had built, shown as her ears and tail fell limp. Shinano, knowing it was her turn, walked forwards until she was just a step away. I am sorry, Shinano. It's not Belle's fault, I asked him. If you need to, then blame me, just don't hate me. Shinano felt her anger disappear, seeing how much it affected her sister. It broke her heart at the sight and kneeled down to grab her hands, gently enveloping them in her own. She couldn't help but feel ashamed and mad at herself for her selfishness. No matter how upset she was, she didn't blame neither of the two Renards. Musasha, it is true that I am upset. You know very well that I like Belle, and yet you let this happen. But I know even better that you didn't really have a choice. Well, you did, and you picked the person you liked the most. There is nothing wrong with that. The reason why I'm upset is mostly because I'm being petty, and the rest is because I'm angry at myself. Angry because I felt betrayed by you. But I know you aren't that kind of person. You know more than anyone that I would never hold it against Belle, but what you should know even better is that I could never hate you. You are my beloved Wani-chan, the one who always cared for me. No matter what you do, I could never find it in my heart to hate you. I love you, and you are an irreplaceable person. Did all that time we spent together mean nothing to you? Her eyes widened in horror as she clasped her hands tightly in her own, desperately denying it. Of course not. With a hug, she silenced her plea and rubbed circles on her back. I know. Sorry, I shouldn't have said it like that. I'm just saying that you shouldn't mind me. Just tell Belle what you really want. I'll support you regardless. Besides, as Elise said, there is space for more, though I will admit I'm a little miffed that you stole the lead. That doesn't mean I can't love him alongside you. She spoke softly, whispering in her ear so that the others couldn't hear before pulling back. Musasha felt glad that Shinano didn't hate her, and with no one else to apologize to, she turned to Belle. She calmed herself, and with the most confident and resolute answer she could muster, she gave her final answer. Belle, I want to continue this our relationship, and start properly. Will you let me be your girlfriend? The confidence had rapidly crumbled as she was left a blushing mess. Luckily, though, she managed to get everything out coherently. With a blush of his own, Belle smiled and took her hand before accepting her feelings. Some people like Zenitsu and Murakami felt the veins in their head popping, though one in more of a harmless rage at the injustice of the situation, while the other felt a venomous hatred for the boy who had not only made love to one of the princesses, but also stole the heart of two more, as confirmed by Shinano and Akagi themselves. Then there was Ryu, who bristled with jealousy as her crush was stolen right under her nose from the most unsuspecting person. Akagi too was baffled yet happy with the situation. Damn Muzaki, though I have to compliment her for going that far. That vixen stole the lead. That's when Elise remembered something and whispered in the violet-haired girl's ear. Musasha, did you take the tea to prevent a pregnancy? The girl in question stayed quiet, telling the captain all she needed. Did you get all his, well, seeds out of you. And no, I can, as a matter of fact, still feel the warmth in my WW womb. Like a L-lot. Picking the embarrassed girl up by the arm, she quickly excused herself. Sorry, Amaterasu-sama, I'll just borrow Musasha for a quick moment. Just like that, the two were gone, much to the confusion of everyone else other than Reveria, who could pretty much guess what it was about. While everyone was calming down after Musasha suddenly dropped that bomb on the group, Bell signaled Takemikazuchi and left the establishment. He waited outside before a couple of seconds later the God of War came out. Bell turned and was met with a warm smile from the man. With jerk of the head, the god invited Bell to take a walk, knowing that Bell needed to talk about something important. Thank you, Take. No problem, Bell. As your god, all I can provide is support, and some cases that support is mental, not physical. Just try not to go around bedding every girl you see. Don't go jumping on Mikoto. Take. Haha, sorry. With what happened I couldn't help it. So, what's been troubling you? The Eastern man had noticed how Bell was often out of it, looking to be deep in thought, something that was out of character for the Renard. Well, recently I told Elise about my connection to the Zeus and Hera familia. Takemikazuchi immediately understood the seriousness of the situation, but at the same time he was glad there was someone he could trust with such a secret. Ever since then I've been wondering what to do about the Loki and Hera familia. And something that's been swimming around my head was whether or not I could forgive them. What is forgiveness? Who deserves it? How do I know who I should forgive? Recently Elise explained her own interpretation, saying there were many different meanings. I am also remembering something Zeus told me, though I can't quite remember clearly. All these feelings and decisions have been confusing me. Takemikazuchi smiled and patted his head. I see. You've been having a hard time, haven't you? Like Elise said, sometimes I forget you are 14. I guess you want to know why I forgave Akaza and Michikatsu. And what are my thoughts on Loki and Freya? Yes. Allow me to start by saying that my wisdom when it comes to feelings and emotions isn't the best. I am after all a god of war, not justice or sentiments. But if you were to ask me why I forgave them, I'd say that it's mostly because I can't blame them for their actions. I know they didn't become demons because they wanted to. Most demons become such creatures due to a tragic backstory. Akaza was consumed from rage when his opponents, who couldn't defeat him, petty and cowardly, went after his fiancée, killing her by poisoning the water in the well. Meanwhile, Michikatsu was filled with envy for Yorichi's superb talent with his blade. In the end, these emotions led them down dark paths, and before they knew it, they had lost their humanity to them. Perhaps it's because I'm a god and my perception is different. But just like any other human, I have experienced such emotions. I know how it feels. The only difference is that we are eternal. Us gods have a long time to sort out our thoughts and have gained countless experience to the point we sometimes become desensitized to your own suffering. Make no mistake, I felt an unbridled rage at the death of the children, but at any turn any of the orphans could have been in their place. Homeless and abused, they could have become corrupt with rage and hatred for the human race and become the very same demons that once wreaked havoc through the Far East. But you must remember one thing, Belle. People are emotional beings who act on said feelings. It is simply in their nature, and sometimes these emotions get out of control. You too hold an unreserved hatred for Loki and Freya. All I can say is that before you make a decision, you should learn more about the two goddesses, learn how they feel about those events. What do they truly think? Though I can't speak for Freya, I want you to speak a little with Loki. There is more to her than meets the eye, and you might be surprised from what you discover. It could change how you perceive her. But in the end, the decision is up to you and you alone. Only you can make that decision. Forgiveness is a virtue of temperance. It requires strength. One you can only find in your heart, Belle. But you will only find it if you believe in it. The two had stopped walking long ago and stared at the clouds as they calmly sailed the bright blue sky. Once Takemikazuchi finished his monologue, only the bustling sounds of the city remained. The god, however, did not mind, as he knew the young boy was wrapping his head around what he had told him. He knew it was a lot to take in. He only hoped it cast a little light on his current dilemma. Takemikazuchi-sama, thank you. The divine being saw the smile and couldn't help but remember some of the children who were no longer here. Take. A few tears ran down his face, surprising Belle. The god had always been charismatic and supportive, but he too forgot that just as he mentioned, a divine being still felt emotions. Sorry, you just reminded some of those children. It really shows you took care of the orphanages. It does. Belle gingerly nodded like an excited child, his smile soon turning distant yet happy. I never met my parents, but, with you I can somewhat understand how it feels to have a father, that is. You are always there for us, caring for us, teaching and training us. So for all that, thank you, I will forever be grateful. Takemikazuchi couldn't be happier to hear that. Belle was confirming that he had succeeded in his goal, to provide a welcoming home and a caring family for those who didn't have one. He couldn't stop the tears that escaped his eyes. Thank you, Belle, it means a lot for me to hear that. Elise had just got back after getting Musasha a checkup from Amid, though there was no way to tell as of right now. With the dose of the tea given to her, the chances of a pregnancy should be zeroed. The problem the red-haired captain faced now were two miffed women. Then again, seeing as their new member had just stolen the lead, it wasn't surprising really. So much for not liking Belle romantically, eh? Musakai Wani-chan. Musasha felt a vein pop at the smug smile that her little sister looked at her with, but she couldn't deny it. I guess, that went out of the window after what happened earlier. Tell me, how is he in bed? He is a monster. She focused on nothing other than the table in front of her while her cheeks blushed furiously. Man, how long did you two go at it? A couple hours. Feeling her heart explode at the memory of his loving passion, she hesitantly admitted how long they went for. More than 12 hours. It was barely a whisper, but all the girls there heard it loud and clear. Their eyes were as wide as the plates with which they ate lunch as they heard the ludicrous amount of time the two had went at it. Damn, even I haven't done it with Belle for that long. Elise bit her thumb as she thought back to all their nights together. I'm not going to lie. Despite what I said, I have to admit that I am a little jealous of Musasha. Sabaki nodded, agreeing with Kagaya. Should we ask Belle? Now wait a second, girls. I get you want to have sex with Belle, but you should check if you're ready for that kind of thing. Kagaya turned to her, but her expression showed she was not amused with her suggestion. Easy for you to say. You got laid several times, Captain. Elise could feel the frustration in her voice at this point. That is true, but that's not the point. What I'm getting at is that it's quite the leap in a relationship. You should make sure to see if you're ready so that you don't end up going too fast and possibly regretting it. Besides, look at it like this. Now that the tournament is suspended, you have 4 days to figure it out. Well, 3 'cause I feel like Musasha also needs a day with Belle, and during these 4 days I'll back off so you girls can have your time with him. Considering how attached the two had been in the past weeks, it came as a surprise to everyone. At the same time, it wasn't too much of a shock to Kagaya. Despite Elise's quirkiness, she had always acted like a big sister to her familiar. She could only guess that it was being brought over to the polyamory. Are you sure about that? I'll be fine, Sabaki. I can live without him for 4 days. Besides, he's still going to come back to me for the night anyways. So I'll get to cuddle him then. Though Artoria was not ready to advance to that stage of the relationship, she did want a date or two. She hadn't really gotten the chance to develop their relationship, and she didn't know much about him. She saw plenty of what kind of person he was, but she wanted to know more about his history and what kind of things he liked and didn't like. Besides, though she was not ready to make love to him, that didn't mean she didn't want to kiss him like the others did and get closer not only physically but emotionally. With that in mind, they planned their dates, with each one of the 3 getting an entire day in the upcoming break while unanimously agreeing to let Musasha have him for the remaining half of today. Belle and Takemikazuchi had just returned to the hostess, but just as the Renard took one step in, Zenitsu was instantly on him, homing in on his position. His face showed an untold promise of pain and curses. The rising hero could only smile sheepishly, knowing what this was all about. He opened his mouth to start complaining, only for Inosuke to come in and smack him harshly on the back of the head with the hilt of his sword. Don't worry. The great Inosuke is here to save you, Matsuri. Matsuri. Luckily, Tanjiro, who was used to his antiques, could easily decipher his mistake. Inosuke, it's Katsuki, not Matsuri. Meh, same thing. From now on I shall call you White Fluff. Belle was too confused and simply nodded. He didn't think he'd have the energy to argue with him. He could feel the guy was very persistent and stubborn. Much to his relief, Musasha came to his rescue, though he couldn't help but notice how furious Murakami looked. Belle, it might be weird. After all, we did skip a few steps. Scratch that, all the steps. But will you go on a date with me? It took a moment, but he immediately nodded when he understood her request. Of course, you want to go now. Yes, thank you. The pair of Renards walked side by side down the main street. Musasha glanced at Belle, who was enjoying the city's lively atmosphere. Her eyes then moved down to his hand and then back to his tail. Shyly she slowly inched closer until her hand grazed hers. She was hesitating, not knowing whether or not to go for it when Belle's fingers gently interlaced with her own. His tail in the meanwhile was gingerly wrapping around her own. She felt herself smile at that before returning the gesture and tightening her grip on Belle. Hands in hands the two resumed walking down the main street, drawing much attention to themselves. To the princess, however, it didn't matter. She loved feeling Belle's warmth, and though the bliss she felt right now was very different than the one from last night, she was really enjoying this feeling called love. Thank you, Belle. For what? For going along with my selfish wishes. It's not selfish to want to be loved, at least I don't think so. Leaning onto the Renard, she smiled. She had never loved someone romantically and had always denied any attractions to Belle, but she had to admit that it was a very pleasant feeling. In a way, she was glad that she had been attacked that night, otherwise she wouldn't have discovered the beauty that was love. Feeling all of a sudden giddy, she let go of his hand but tightly gripped his tail with her own and ran forward. To a human couple, the way they held hands, or tails really, might have been a weird and foreign scene, while other beast people would understand it better, albeit feel jealous. After all, not all races had long fluffy tails to hold their lover with. Poor human bunnies had it worse than anyone else. Belle wh a loud rumbling that originated from Musasha shook the earth. Silence followed right after the sound died down, but the look from Belle caused her to blush like a tomato. The adventurer couldn't help but give in to his giggles, much to her shame, who could only give him a slap on the shoulder, not that it silenced his endless mirth. Belle, you meanie. Hee. Sorry, you just looked really cute. Though already red, his comment managed to darken her blush by a few shades. It took her a moment to calm down, and when she finally looked up it was only because she felt a weak tug at her tail. Come on, there is a creep stand there. Why not buy one? With a shy nod she followed as her lover led her to the place that would absolve her of the embarrassment that her hunger was. The vendor, who by now had seen Belle with his girlfriends multiple times but didn't quite recognize Musasha, smiled knowingly. Another poor girl who fell to your charms. Both blushed but nodded, confirming his suspicion, which brought a brighter and wider smile. It was always endearing seeing Belle with his girlfriends. The romantic atmosphere the couple gave was quite the pleasant feeling, but it also did mean more customers. Sue him, but he did like the sound of the profit and he'd do his best to support Belle. He too initially was skeptical by the idea of polyamory, but having gotten to know Belle and seeing how happy they were, who was he to stop them? Here you go, Belle, a special set for your girlfriend. Thanks as always, David. No problem. Just keep bringing me more customers and I'll do my best. With a chuckle he nodded before returning his attention fully to the fluffy girlfriend who was busy nibbling on the dessert like a cute bunny. Without thinking about it, he began patting her head, slowly rubbing hair and ears. Musasha blushed but silently enjoyed, shown by her twitchy ears, his touch while eating. The problem, however, arose only a couple of minutes later. While Belle was enjoying the moment, Musasha was suddenly having a hard time enjoying anything. Perhaps it was the red spider lily's lingering effect, or maybe an instinct or a need that was awakened after their union, but she currently struggled with a heat building up inside her. Rather than inside, it was around her lower back. Are you okay? Belle had noticed the way she was distracted, her breaths labored and her ears twitchy. I am fine. Safe to say, the closer Belle got, the harder it was for her to focus and hold back. The moment his tail touched hers, though, was the moment she gave up. Her eyes darted to the right, spotting a very dark alley. She grabbed Belle's wrist and made a beeline for the alley, much to the surprise of Belle. The alley they took went into an intersection which the girl followed deeper into until they reached a dead end. It was safe from the eye of any passer-by but close enough to be in earshot of the two adjacent streets. Musasha faced the wall, not knowing how to explain this situation to Belle nor feeling it in herself to look into his eyes. How could she explain to him that she was feeling horny without making it weird? Unknowingly, while in her mental conflict, her tail had been wrapping around and rubbing her partner's leg, which gave enough of a hint to Belle. But as a very horny Renard, she had forgotten that she would begin emitting a strong pheromone that attracted Belle. The two rapidly returned to the hostess to let the poor woman whose legs trembled use the shower. By the time the two had arrived, it was already late evening, just in time for dinner. Belle too took a shower lest he wanted another beast race with a good nose to pick on his strong manly scent and jump his bones. The two had calmed down, but a single meeting glance and the two would explode into blushing messes. Luckily the other members weren't there yet, so only Mia and Syr, who could easily tell what had transpired, were there to witness their little moment. Belle, I already told you, but don't go taking the name of pub too seriously. MMIA. Haha, come on. If you're not too busy, attend to your duties and set up the tables. Today is the first day I make a public opening. Though I appreciate your familia and its allies, this is a public establishment. Right away, Mamma Mia. As soon as he was gone, the dwarf looked at the princess and gave her a serious look. Oi, don't you ever hurt the boy, or I will personally come hunt you down. You got me. Of course. I would never hurt Belle. I'll love him too much. Looking down at the ground, she whispered the last part with a bright red blush, which Mia appreciated. It showed her honest thoughts and made her sure he was safe with her. Each member of her staff was like a child to her. Though Belle hadn't been around for long, she had quickly grown fond of him for his earnest and hard-working nature. Good. Though it was a little embarrassing to face the knowing shit-eating grins from Elise and Akaji and the unamused looks from the other three girlfriends, Belle and Musasha managed to get by dinner. Nothing of note happened for once, and he was able to relax with a cuddly Elise for the night, though not before spilling the beans to the curious captain. After teasing him, she decided to simply cuddle until the two fell asleep, which Belle was grateful for since he wasn't sure he could go again. The following morning, he found himself waiting in a more square. He wore a simple white shirt and black pants while waiting for his date. He was imagining what she would look like when a pair of arms gently wrapped around him. Who is it? My beloved Kaguya. Hee, correct. Turning around, he was met with an unusual but welcome sight. Kaguya had foregone her usual kimono and wore a simple white sundress. What's the matter? No, it's just I'm always used to seeing you in a kimono, so this is a new and fresh look you have. Well, I wanted to surprise you. So what do you think? You look just as beautiful as the sun that shines on us now. She giggled and leaned in to hug him, as good of a sweet talker as always. I live to please you girls. Yes, and you are pleasing me very well. Taking his hand in her own, she brought him down for a long and passionate yet chaste kiss. Enough to leave both him and her wanting for more. But that could wait for later. Right now she wanted to enjoy her time with him in another way. According to Elise, seeing Belle nibble away at new foods he never tried before was the most adorable and satisfying sight there was, so she needed to see for herself if that was true. But not before relaxing within the comfort of Belle's warmth after being denied for the past few days. Let's go, Belle. The Far Eastern girl led her boyfriend off to a nearby bench before sitting him down and placing herself right next to him. As much as she wanted to just sit on his lap, that wasn't a good idea in public, or at least that's what she told herself. First things first, hug. Opening her arms, she waited for her Renard to lean in and close his arms around her back. When he did, she finally released a satisfied sigh. She had missed the feeling of being surrounded by his warmth, which provided her with a sense of security and relaxation. Snuggling into his chest, she held him in place, preventing any escape. Are we just going to stay here like this? Yes. For how long? However long it takes for me to recover from the absence of my boyfriend's love. So he waited with his arms wrapped tightly around her, getting as close as their physical bodies possibly allowed them. For nearly half an hour the two sat there. No words were spoken, but none were needed for the two to communicate between each other. Want to start moving, Belle? I wouldn't mind staying like this for a bit longer. As much as I agree with you, I have something I want to do, or rather see, and we need to be in the new food district that has recently become popular for that to happen. So he let go of her only for her to take his hand, pull him forwards. Like that, Kaguya began leading Belle to the eastern southern side of the city. Based on the research she had conducted, there were lots of new restaurants and stands opening that offered a wide range of different foods from all across the world. On their way there, they had to stop when Belle spotted an angel. No, not a person looking like an angel, an actual angel. Even Kaguya was surprised by the appearance. A man that wore silver armor, a cloak that completely hid his face, and tentacle-like white wings sprouting from his back. According to the stories she had heard, angels came from a floating island situated above the empire. They used to live in harmony with the empire, but after the rise of the new emperor and its fall to his tyrannical and horrible rule, all angels cut ties with the empire. All except one too corrupt from a dark power. In the end, the angel fell from grace and was banished by the angels to roam the world on his own, or he would have if not for the empire taking him in. Now one of those angels was here preaching how the empire had been degraded and corrupted, which everyone knew well. Stories of their aggressive invasions and the way they pillaged, killed, and raped their way through villages and towns was infamously notorious. Apparently, the dark power that tainted their fellow angel was also the source that began causing chaos in the empire. A demonic enemy was festering in the country, guiding it and controlling it behind everyone's back. Knowing of the demons in the Far East, she believed two things. First of all, there was truth in his words of the existence of demonic beings, and second of all, she knew that the demons were a different kind than those that could be found in the Far East. As concerning as it sounded, neither of them thought it would be an issue in the near future. For now, however, they would worry about their date. It seemed like the angel was just going around spreading awareness, and was already done here. On the other hand, what the two had heard was somewhat concerning and agreed to inform the other familiars later when they met them. Now time to witness Belle's adorable nibbles. When the two arrived, they were amazed by how colorful and crowded the place was. The district was separated into many different regions, each representing its culture and cuisine, filled with restaurants and stands offering a wider variety of foods Belle had ever seen. Orario wasn't called the center of the world for nothing. Besides the presence of the dungeon and its adventurers, it was a commercially and culturally rich place. In the end, the two had decided to stop by an Eastern type of cuisine called Jew cuisine, apparently derived from its respective country. The Jew Empire was a large empire off in the Eastern continent, yet west of the Far East. Though not incredibly powerful, it was one of the largest countries in the world of Gokai. Kagaya had ordered a plate of spring rolls and sweet and sour pork. Belle, on the other hand, had ordered a massive amount of kung pao chicken, different types of dim sum and dumplings, as well as 2 servings of roast duck. Kagaya was shocked by the amount he ate. Then again, she guessed he was famished from the amount of exercise he had done with Musasha. That damn vixen. Her gloomy thoughts were interrupted when their food did arrive. As expected, Belle's order was just humongous, and even the waiters looked on with shock at the amount they had to carry to the table. Just as Elise said, though, Kagaya's reaction, as well as the staff and customers around, was to coo when they saw Belle go at the food. He rapidly nibbled at the food, his ears wiggling animatedly and tail wagging excitedly. Through it all, he smiled and swayed his head right and left. Kia. He's so cute. And he's my boyfriend. She leaned her head on her hands, silently admiring the cute fluffy bundle of joy that was her lover. His bright eyes suddenly turned to her, and his smile became larger as he held a small dumpling with his chopsticks out to her. Here you go, Kagaya, say ah. The girl wasn't expecting that, but as her mind realized what he was doing, she immediately complied. Opening her mouth and moving a stray bang out of the way, she waited as the dumpling was placed on her tongue. She savored the taste, which admittedly it was very good, but having the love of your life do that only added to the taste. How was it? Hee, really good. The two continued eating until both wiped their plates clean. No matter how cute Belle was, everyone was more impressed by the fact that the Renard had finished the entirety of his massive order. Having finished their food, however, Kagaya immediately dragged Belle away to reach their next destination. That place was the tree that him and the girlfriends had visited on their group date. What's the plan here? Just going to rest and cuddle under the tree. It was a simple enough request which he gladly accepted. Settling down under the tree, Kagaya dropped on his lap, straddling his hips. She had a hungry look on her face as she gazed at his soft lips, something she yearned to devour for a while. Giving in to her demands, he let her wrap him up with her arms as she leaned close with her face to finally sate her craving for his love. No one there would bother them, as it was a place meant for couples, and knowing that, Kagaya unleashed all her pent-up desire. For many long hours the two switched between cuddling, hugging, and kissing. If not for the public place, Kagaya would have stripped him down there. The date just made her sure she wanted to just feel him push her down and deflower her right there and then. Unlike other people, Kagaya didn't mind Belle's past. If he wanted to talk about it, she would listen. If not, she would wait. No matter what happened in the past or what kind of person he was, all that mattered to her was who he was now. And she had seen plenty of who he was now, and she desperately wanted him to advance their relationship to the same level as that of Elise and Musasha. I love you, Kagaya. I love you too, my little fox. When the two got back to the hostess, they were met with quite the unexpected scene. Belle and Kagaya had just ate dinner, helped a lost child, and finally returned from their date when Shinano ran up to Belle, who she had been looking for, and dragged him away, saying it was an emergency. Amaterasu said something was happening to Musasha and his presence was desperately needed, leaving Kagaya more confused than annoyed. A loud clattering of broken plates and cutlery falling to the ground resounded in the little residence that Amaterasu had recently bought for her familiar to reside in. Seeing as they would be here whenever they'd come over to Orario, and it was going to be far more regularly now, with Musasha and soon Shinano and Akaji getting in a relationship with Belle, she thought it would be a good occasion. Wani-chan. The sound had attracted the attention of everyone in the building. As the purple Renard was on dishwashing duty when the accident happened, everyone rushed to the kitchen. When Zenitsu and Tanjiro moved to help her, the two were smacked away by her tail, sending them flying back. Seeing that, everyone stopped, waiting for Shinano and Amaterasu to assist her instead. What's the matter? Ha, ha. I need. Belle. Her face was visibly flushed and her breath was labored and erratic. Her tail swayed frantically and sweat dripped down her body. It almost looked like she was unbelievably horny to Amaterasu, but the way she shivered and her eyes were unfocused was worrying. It made it seem like she was desperately longing for Belle, which was weird considering how Musasha normally acts and the fact that she saw him just yesterday. Amaterasu got Akagi, Amagi and Kaga to move her back to her room while she and Shinano went to the hostess to look for the person who could fix this mess. As soon as she gave the word, Shinano didn't think twice and dashed out of the residence. Belle now found himself in front the door to her room. All members of the familia stood around him looking with worry and curiosity. Little Akari was also there on the verge of tears. She really loved her sisters and seeing one in pain broke her heart. Amaterasu and Shinano in the meantime placed everyone's hopes on Belle explaining how this all happened. Go ahead, Belle. The white Renard, however, barely approached the door when it slammed open and a violet blur assaulted him, tackling him to the ground. Everyone moved back with a yelp as the gold-eyed Renard held Belle down with her hands. To the shock of all the members there, though, she suddenly leaned down and began licking and kissing his collarbone and neck, her hands gripping his own and her body squished against his. The parents had to cover their innocent daughter's eyes while Musasha began grinding her hips on Belle. Wani-chan. For the second time in a day, Shinano had the life shocked out of her, but when she moved to try and separate them, she was met with the fiercest growls she had ever heard or faced. With lightning speed, Musasha stood up, grabbed Belle and made sure everyone stayed away with a glare before dashing into her room and locking the door. Everyone knew better than to try and steal an overprotective, irate, and horny Renard's mate lest they wanted to be torn to shreds. What transpired behind those doors were long hours of unspeakably lewd, frantic, and loud exercises that made everyone blush at the thought. Though her bedroom voice was reserved for Belle, a single loud moan escaped the room. What was that? Why did Wani-chan lick and kiss Nini like that? And the questions asked by Akari kept going, realizing that despite it being soon, two poor parents would have to have the talk with her. Shinano, though worried, couldn't help the jealousy festering in her at the sounds of pleasure of her sister. Akagi, on the other hand, dealt with it by trying to rope Amagi and Kaga to go in and join the party. As far as Amaterasu had seen, both sisters had been convinced enough by Akagi that they began showing interest in Belle, but as much as they entertained the idea of sharing a kiss with him, it seemed that they weren't a fan of Masashi's nor Shinano's takis being aimed at their necks enough to get laid. Oh dear heavens, who else is next on Belle's list of girls to bed? Belle left silently the day after, under Amaterasu's suggestion, leaving a naked and spent violet Renard resting in her bed. The boy in the meantime had reached the hostess and showered before going out again to meet his second date as told by Kagaya the day before, when their outing ended. Should be around here. The girl he was meeting today had asked to meet him in quite the peculiar place. That place where Belle currently found himself in was the commercial district where most of Orario's trade occurred. High-end or low-end, you could find anything from a couple to several billions of valis. Rich nobles, merchants, and businessmen could be seen all around the plaza he was waiting in. Belle. Turning around, he saw Tsubaki run to him before wrapping her arm around his neck. Hey Zu. Hee, how are you doing? What happened yesterday, by the way? Heard from Kagaya that you got kidnapped by Shinano. Apparently it was an emergency. Oh that, well. Belle briefly explained what happened, leaving Tsubaki confused. Damn, you fucked her so hard you sent her into a permanent heat. Tsubaki. Sorry, but that's how it sounds to me. Belle grumbled as she teased him but let her have her fun, for now. Anyways, why are we here, Zu? What have you planned? Tsubaki began looking a little hesitant as she scratched the back of her head. Well, as you know, I'm not good with the romantic stuff really, so I just thought to ask you to be there with whatever I normally do. All I really want is to hug, kiss and cuddle with you, you know, the physical aspect of a relationship. I get it, and if it's not smithing then it's got to be business related since you are normally conducting trades for the familia and yourself, no. Very well, Belle. She nuzzled his face affectionately when he answered her correctly. With a smile, she then grabbed his hand and began leading him before suddenly slowing down and turning back to him. I'm sorry, Belle, if this is not romantic in any way or if this is not what you expected. It's just that a date is time outside where you spend time with your significant other, right? It's fine, Zoo. A date's goal isn't for a couple to necessarily be romantic as long as it is fun. She always appreciated how supportive he was now more than ever. With renewed confidence, she continued leading Belle until they reached a trader. He was selling what looked like ores, and if he had learnt anything from Tsubaki is that those would become metals after being processed. Hey Tsubaki, who's that you have with YA? New Smith. You don't ever teach others. What's with that? No, Clyde, YA senile old fart. This is my boyfriend. Tsubaki hugged Belle close to her, squishing his face in her bountiful chest, almost as if to protect him. Damn, he's lucky. He gets to see heaven early. Yeah, he does, anywhere and anytime. Perhaps you would get the chance if you stopped caring only about mining ores and instead tried to look presentable. Nah, honestly, I'm fine with the way I am now. Go ahead and pick whatever ores you need. While Tsubaki was busy selecting the needed ores for her work, the old man with a thick white beard began inspecting Belle. A Renard, the hell did she pick you up from? Babel Tower. What's she doing to keep you as her boyfriend? She paying you? The smith's voice joined in while inspecting the ore she was holding in her hand. Clyde, I will bash your head in. I can hear it all from here. Ah, right. W8. How old are you? You look real handsome, boy, but I don't think you are a day over 20. I'm 14. FF14. Tsubaki is 38, you know that, right? Belle chuckled but nodded. Yes, I'm aware. I assure you that I'm with Tsubaki because I love her with all my heart. I don't care about the age because it doesn't change how kind and beautiful she is. Besides, I believe you have a bigger problem to worry about right now. Pointing behind him, Tsubaki stood there with a fist ready to crush him. W8, I'm sorry, I'll give you a discount. Tsubaki and Belle had finished collecting all the materials she needed and were walking back, but the mention of her age and how the old man thought she paid to keep him boosted her insecurity, which Belle clearly noticed. He had stayed quiet for a good 2 hours or so, but seeing as he was not getting anywhere like that, he decided to take matters into his hand. It was only about 12:30, but he decided that it was better to act now than risk ruining the entire date. Belle. He grabbed her hand and stopped her in place. He had contemplated pulling her into an alley, but he feared it might increase her insecurities if he tried to hide them while he tried to comfort her. In the end, the best choice was to just bear with the embarrassment and do it in front of the many people that were walking down the street. What's the matter? I should be the one asking you that. Doubting yourself. She was surprised to hear that and was going to try to feign ignorance, but seeing Belle's look, she knew there was no lying about that. She was not allowed to even explain herself as Belle pulled her towards him and kissed her without regard for their public setting. Almost everyone's attention fell on them, not because a couple was kissing but because it was the captain of the Hephaestus Familia and the rising star that kissed. Tsubaki went red in embarrassment as Belle grasped her face and her waist with his hands and tail. Her futile attempt to stop him ceased as she fell into the kiss and began yearning for more, deepening the kiss as she wrapped her hands around his neck. When he finally did let go of her, face was flushed and her breath labored. Belle. Sorry, I didn't mean to come off too strong. It's just that you seemed troubled. So I thought you needed a K-kiss to boost your confidence. Her smile soon returned, and with a peck on the cheek she thanked him. That definitely helped Belle. Thanks. Finally getting back on track with their date and arriving at the smith's workshop, Tsubaki thought it was time to unveil her plan for the date to Belle. She started the forge before turning to Belle, who was depositing the materials they had bought when she began speaking. You see, Belle, my idea for the rest of the day was to work together to make an item, similar to what we did with the sword. If you don't mind, that is. Of course I don't. For several hours the two worked together, with Tsubaki using the excuse to teach and guide Belle to slide in behind him and gently rest against his strong body. They often got distracted by the touch or the kisses they gave each other, but managed to complete the work, nonetheless. Phew, there we go. Finally done. The two of them stared at their handiwork, a simple heart-shaped pendant that broke in 2 pieces, one for each necklace. Standing side by side, they joined the 2 pieces, making a full heart. Hee hee. Belle could see that the smith was happy with their effort and treasured her half of the heart. Sorry about earlier. I worry about such small and insignificant things. It's not insignificant, Zoo. It's important because you should know that I love you for who you are and that it doesn't matter what others think. I just wished I could help you understand that better. Then, pushing Belle against the wall and pinning between it and her own body, Tsubaki began aggressively kissing him until a tail grabbed her by the waist and gently pulled her off. The smith was left disappointed and confused as the Renard denied her. I understand how you feel, Zhu. But not now. Not like this. Why? Is it wrong to want to make love to the person who is dearest to me? Tsubaki looked on the verge of tears as she begged Belle to let her go all the way. Zhu, I want you just as much, but you're not in your right mind. Even if I know you want to, you are doing it out of desperation, to prove a point. But that's not how it should be nor why we should do it. It would feel like I'm taking advantage of you. So please wait, and once you calm down and really think about it, I won't stop you then. Tsubaki hugged Belle, tightly holding on to him as if he might disappear the moment she let go. She realized in that moment how much Belle cared for her, and the way he supported her and did his best for her truly showed how important she was to him. Though she wouldn't get her wishes fulfilled today, she was sure nonetheless that she was not going to regret it, and decided that once things calmed down she would move to the next stage of their relationship. But once again things went south by the time they had gotten back. For whatever reason, Mazesh's weird horniness had struck once again, and he was forced to go to the Rising Sun Mansion, as Amaterasu had decided to call it, to tend to his girlfriend once again. While the two Renards mated, lustfully craving for each other, Amaterasu, Taika Mikazuchi, Astrea and their respective familiars began looking into Mazesh's situation, having grown concerned as it kept recurring. What's the matter with Musasha? Initially I was kinda miffed that she kept stealing our boyfriend to have a quick romp, but now, it's getting concerning. Kagaya worrying about someone, that's rare. Shut it, Elise. Besides, this is because back when I was still in the Far East, she used to look after me quite a lot. So no matter the fact that she rubs her bond to Belle in my face, albeit not intentionally, I will always love her as my own big sister. And I am worried about her, seeing how things have been going. Astrea smiled seeing her child be so considerate, but frowned as she couldn't offer much. Unfortunately, me and my familiar can't really help. Besides Kagaya, no one knows anything about the Far East, much less Renard specifically. We can try to look for information. Orario is a big place and the center of the world for a reason. Astrea did her best to offer her help, providing what options she could. Thank you, Astrea, but even I don't really know what's going on with her. This never happened before, so it's an unprecedented case. As such, any help we can get is welcome. What about you, Take? You've been awfully quiet and lost in thought. I say we let things just happen as they are now. That sudden declaration caught everyone by surprise. Are you sure? Even Belle is bound to get tired with Musasha jumping him every night. As far as I understood from Belle, today is the 4th day in a row they have went at it. I don't know, but I feel something telling me to just let it happen. Call it my godly intuition, but I believe if we just let things occur, we'll get our answers to this situation in less than 3 days. No one there knew what to make of the situation, but the god was awfully specific and confident of his decision. Besides, with no knowledge over the current predicament of the princess, they had no choice but just let it happen anyways. Very well, we don't have much of a choice right now. Good thing we left out the nobles, otherwise this would turn into a dispute. Though the imperial family has made Belle and Mazesh's engagement official and most of the nobles are okay with it, there are some who aren't as happy about it. Let me guess, Murakami. Zenitsu spoke with disgust and venom laced in each word he pronounced. Though he hated how Belle had multiple girlfriends, it was all in friendly manner and joke, and he could never hate the Renard himself. He knew it was his own jealousy, and Belle had shown to be a kind and heroic person who deserved the love he got. That and his girlfriends were all clearly happy to be with Belle. But the young noble was someone he despised with every fiber of his body. He was a pervert and held no respect for anyone, be it the women the blonde swordsman worshipped, his fellow demon slayers, nor the many honorable warriors he had met in Orario, including Belle. He was all but rotten to the core in his eyes, and he wasn't the only one to share that thought. That's right, but he is of no consequence since his father fully supports Belle's engagement to the princess. Though not as against it as Murakami, some other low-rank nobles aren't satisfied with the arrangement. Either because of Belle's status, not being a noble, being a stranger and foreigner to the Far East and not having done any deed for the nation, others because of jealousy much like Murakami, as they were interested in Musasha and the imperial family's power. Tomo raised her bottle of sake with a smile, triumphantly announcing how it was a sealed matter. Either way, it doesn't matter. First of all, Belle is effectively Far Eastern since he was born there. Secondly, no one other than her own family and Amaterasu-sama have the right to say anything. With both having accepted the current situation, then no one can do anything anyways, unless they intend to be accused of treason, that is, and be met with a swift slash of my blade. With several nods of agreement, the meeting was disbanded. The final decision was to wait and see what happened. The tournament would resume in a day according to Ganesha, leaving Belle the chance to go on one last date with Artoria before the tournament resumed the day after. Hopefully they'd have answers soon, but little did they know that they were in for a groundbreaking discovery. Artoria wore a simple outfit consisting of a long-sleeved white blouse and a blue panel skirt. The blue ribbon tie was a small detail that made the outfit look elegant. Her long, luscious hair was tied in a bun with another blue ribbon complementing her current clothes. When Belle arrived clothed in black jacket and pants and a white shirt, both stopped to stare at each other. "Why you look very pretty, Artoria?" "Thank you, you too look handsome, Belle." Feeling oddly bold, at least by her standards, the princess took Belle's hand in her own. Unlike her more active sister girlfriends, she had mostly stuck to just simple hugs and gentle nudges. The whole topic was new to her, and with her upbringing she was more desensitized to it than most if not all other girls. Yet she too understood how deep her feelings for the Renard ran. His presence sent a jolt of joy through her, his praise warmed her very soul, and his smile made her heart beat faster. She felt safe and comfortable with him unlike any other person she had been with, even her mentor and teacher Merlin. She was empowered by these feelings to be more direct with Belle. She came to understand very rapidly that she would happily do anything just to see his smile one more time, which luckily he was happy to just shower her with. Though a simple gesture, it meant the world to the royal princess. "What do you have in mind, Artie?" "Well, I was thinking about just going around for now, nothing of special." "Then want to do some shopping for the hostess." "The hostess?" "Yep, I almost always pass by them to get breakfast unless Estrella offers her cooking when I sleep over at the Stardust Garden. This morning Mia said she was missing some groceries for the night, and was going to send someone to get them later. So, how about you accompany me as I complete that task instead of walking aimlessly?" Artoria smiled slightly and nodded. "That sounds like a good plan. Then follow me." Taking to the main street, he began guiding her to the market area. Differently from the commercial district, the market area was mostly aimed for the local residents, selling daily necessities and ingredients. That did not mean that it wasn't filled to the brim with people. When the two of them arrived, they were met with a sea of citizens going on about their day. "Wow, so many people." "That's right, so make sure to hold onto my hand tightly so that we don't get separated." Gladly taking in the advice, she tightened the grip on his slender fingers. Like that, the two began looking for the necessary ingredients, with Belle taking the moment to teach Artoria how to distinguish which product is better so that you get higher quality ingredients. She was surprised how much there was to learn and how meticulous Belle was when it came to this. He looked out for the smallest details, showing how he did his best no matter the situation. "I didn't think it would be this complicated." Well, I go above and beyond for the hostess. They have a reputation as the best to maintain after all." Belle turned around, and as he placed the apples he just bought into a bag for the groceries, a child bumped into him. The white-haired girl was knocked down, landing on her but as she collided into his thighs with her forehead. "Eek!" Leaning down, he extended a hand to the child wearing a maid outfit. "I'm really sorry. Are you okay?" "Why, yes, thank you." Taking his hand, the little girl got back up, dusting off her skirt before looking up at Belle with her brilliant light violet eyes. She seemed to want to say something but was hesitating, so Artoria, being the mature and responsible person she was, spoke up. "Is something the matter?" The little maid nodded and turned to Belle. "Could you teach me as well?" "Teach you?" "Yes, I was listening to you explaining how to identify which product is of higher quality, and you seem to know a lot. You see, my Wani-chan, who is the head maid, has been training me and helping me improve. And today she gave me the task to buy groceries. It is my duty to complete this assignment, but it's my first time doing something like this, and I'm not sure how to do it, but I wasn't sure if I should disturb you." It's fine. It's not wrong to ask others for help, and you don't want to disappoint your Wani-chan, right? Then you'll help me. Of course. I am very impressed that you would do so much to help your Wani-chan. The girl smiled brightly and happily celebrated his aid. My name is Belia, but you can call me Belle-chan like Wani-chan does." "Oh, what a coincidence. My name is Belle, so people often call me Belle as well." Really?" Artoria watched the exchange with a smile. Little Belle was really cute, and she couldn't help but coo at the sight of her bright and excited smiles. "Do you have a specific list of things you need to buy?" Little Belle nodded and pulled out a list of things to buy. Seeing as they were mostly simple ingredients, Belle immediately began showing her where to buy the various items. "Say, Belle-chan, how old are you?" "I'm 10. Aren't you a little young?" I wanted to be like my Wani-chan. That's why I decided to be a maid. You really look up to her, don't you? Yes, she's an amazing person after all. As soon as they arrived at their destination, Belle began explaining to her how to understand if it was a good quality product or not. The violet-eyed girl was very rapidly learning, but just as it looked like everything was going smoothly, a problem occurred. That will be 150 valis. Belle watched as the little girl pat her pockets but couldn't find her wallet. All three, Renard, Princess and Vendor, began panicking when tears started filling her eyes. It's okay, Belle-chan. He immediately crouched down and head-pat the little girl, slowly stroking her hair. But I can't pay. Then I'll pay for you. That's okay, right, mister? Oh, of course. She immediately tried to object, but Belle left her no room to argue. Hey, I couldn't. It's okay, Belle-chan. You wanted to make Wani-chan proud, so there is no way you can go back empty-handed, right? Belle handed the vendor the valis before receiving the bag and handing it to Belia. Thank you, Belle-sama. It's no problem. Belle then extended his hand to her. Not wanting to get lost, the little maid grabbed onto his hand and followed him as they got the rest of the needed items. Luckily, the list wasn't too long, but by the time they did finish, it was now time for lunch. Having been offered lunch by the couple, Belia happily joined them as they ate at a restaurant. Just like Belle-chan, Artoria was surprised by the sheer amount of food Belle ate. Wow, you eat a lot, don't you, Belle-sama? I do. More importantly, do you need help carrying everything back? Yes. I don't think I can do it on my own. As they finished their meal, they gathered their things and began following the maid. This was not what Artoria imagined her date to be like, but it proved to be much more fun than what she could have planned, and thanked fate for bringing the young maid in training to them. If the story she heard from the other girlfriends, Artoria had to guess that helping children in need was Belle's fate. This was the fourth child he had to help so far. Besides, she was just too adorable. The princess had forgotten how many times she had cooed at her cute expressions. It had also made her form ideas of what having a child with Belle would be like. Though she was still a long way from pursuing a sexual relationship with her lover, that didn't mean she couldn't give it some early thought, and the idea of mothering his child had become very appealing. For now, though, she would refrain from having those thoughts with the little girl around. Belle-chan. Someone called out to the little maid, making all three turn around. They were met with a taller and older version of the girl. Same hair and eye color, but much more mature and more beautiful. Artoria also took notice of the woman's large chest, bound by the maid uniform. She never had issues with her own chest being as big as it is, but the smaller yet perfectly shaped chest of the opposing party made her feel slightly inferior. There you are. I've been looking for you. Belfast Wani-chan. The little girl waved her hand as the older maid ran up to Belle-chan. I saw you left your wallet behind and got worried. Wait, are those the groceries? How did you get them without money? Belle-chan then grabbed Belle's hand and introduced him. This is Belle-sama. He was kind enough to help me out. He also paid for the groceries when I discovered that I couldn't pay. Belfast looked surprised before bowing deeply to Belle. Thank you for looking after my little sister. I am terribly sorry for all the trouble. Allow me to present myself. I'm Belfast Campbell, head maid and member of the Iris Familia. Please don't worry. It's okay. Me and Artoria here were on a date when she bumped into us. Besides, I'm glad I could help her. I was amazed by her determination to impress you. I couldn't just leave her there. Yumu. Belle-chan is cute and it was very fun to help her out, so we don't mind. And please don't scold her. She just wanted to live up to your expectations. Hearing the two of them praise Belle-chan brought Belfast to tears, who then tightly hugged the little girl after hearing how she did it for her sake. You did a good job, Belle-chan. I'm very proud. The look of absolute joy on the maid in training blinded all three adults who had to shield their eyes. Once she was done patting her sister, she got up and once again thanked them. Not only you took time out of your date, but also helped her understand and paid for her as well. I truly could not be more grateful for all the help. Please allow me to refund you for all the expenses. Oh no, it's fine really. It was just a few thousand valis, so there is no need for that. There is no need to repay us for anything really. Looking at Belle-chan, the maid could see the saddened look on her face as she realized they would part and got a great idea. Please allow me to repay you in some way. It is my pride as a maid that will not allow for this kind gesture to go unnoticed. At the very least, please give us a way to contact you again. Like this, we can discuss this further. He knew that there was no escaping this, so with a sigh he relented. Well, you can find me at the Hostess of Fertility. Recently I haven't been around due to the tournament, my job as an adventurer as well as certain personal reasons, but that is where you will normally find me. Very well. Thank you again and rest assured that I shall find a way to repay you for this deed. With that the two maids left, leaving a defeated Belle and a giggling Artoria. There really is no need. She was very beautiful. I feel like Elise will be very interested in this. Please don't give her any weird ideas. Artoria caressed his cheek before grabbing his hand and leading him away, back to their date. I make no promises. Once again Belle found himself under the tree that he had visited with Akagi 2 days prior. Artoria sat next to him, hugging him tightly as she nuzzled his neck. The two had decided to just relax for the last couple of hours, and there was no better way than to cuddle to do so. Having expressed her wish to know more about him, Belle began telling her of his history, leaving out the identity of Zeus. For 2 long hours the two talked about their hobbies and traded stories. One of the most important things the princess had taken from their interaction was the absence of a family and parents. Though he did have his grandfather raise him, that was not quite the family a child should have had. I'm sorry, Belle. What for? For not being like the others. Elise, Kaguya, and Tsubaki are all very active and lively. Not only that, but while they are thinking about advancing their relationship, I'm still stuck here, being only able to hold your hand and hug you. Belle smiled gently and cupped her cheeks, making sure to turn her so that she was looking at him. It's okay, Artie. Sure, our relationship may be different compared to the ones I have with Kaguya and Tsubaki, but that doesn't matter. Everyone is unique. You're not meant to keep up with them. Everyone has different paces. Elise went really fast, Musasha well. Things just happened due to circumstances, and Tsubaki and Kaguya, yes, we are going pretty fast, but nowhere near what I did with the first 2. And then there is you. Slow. And going slow is just fine. Honestly, it suits you better, and as I said, everyone has their own rhythm they follow. Besides, it's a nice change of pace for me as well. I enjoy spending time with you even if it's just hugging and holding hands, so don't worry about it, Artie. Besides, even if you're slow, you are further ahead than Akagi, Shinano, and Ryu. Lifting her gaze from his neck, she looked into his rubellite eyes with a curious glance. You intend to add them to our group? Also, didn't you kiss Ryu and Akagi? Yes, after all, as you said, I kissed Ryu and Akagi kissed me on the cheek. That, and Elise seems very interested in adding them in. But nonetheless, in terms of a relationship, you are definitely ahead. After all, I can't say I love them, but I can definitely tell you this from now. I love you, Artie. Gathering her courage, she quickly leaned forwards and landed a chaste and innocent peck on his lips. Belle was surprised but welcomed it gratefully. He watched as she stuttered and went red like a tomato for the first time. She was too embarrassed to look at him and instead took great interest in their intertwined hands. Sorry, this is all I can manage. It's okay, Artie, take your time. I want you to be comfortable, so please don't push yourself, but thank you. I really appreciate it. And leaning down, he gave her a short yet long kiss on the cheek, making her burst into a stuttering mess. Belle, sorry, but you were just too adorable, I couldn't stop. How do you just switch? Sometimes you're super bashful, embarrassed about the smallest things, then sometimes you just become really confident and shameless. Only when I'm alone with the girls I love. After accompanying Artoria back to her familiar's hotel, he proceeded to go directly to the Rising Sun Manor. Just as he expected, he was needed the moment he entered and was once again kidnapped by a lustful Musasha, who kissed him as soon as he was in sight. Like the past nights, what ensued next was a passionate exchange that exhausted them both. What Belle woke up to the next morning, however, made him yelp so loudly that it had everyone in the manor rushing to the door of Musasha's room. No one dared to actually open the door, only guarding the outside, and instead letting Amaterasu enter to see for herself. Belle. What seems to be the what? Musasha sat naked like the day she was born right on top of Belle. Both Renards looked just as surprised as the goddess herself, and for a good reason too. The violet Renard watched in awe as she wiggled around her tails. No longer one single tail, not 2 or 3 but 9. Just like Belle, like Akari, like Shinano. How is this possible? Amaterasu, who had long cherished the 9-tailed Renards, now watched as a new one just appeared out of nowhere. The night before, said girl had 1 tail, and now as the sun rose over Orario she sprawled out 9, wrapping each one around Belle's own tails as if to confirm whether it was real or not. After allowing the 2 to get dressed, Amaterasu had all the Renard princesses except Akari come in. They all looked completely blown away by their reborn sister. Her 9 electric violet tails looked majestic, if not for the fact that they kept playing with Belle, poking, pulling and tickling him, as Amaterasu went over the situation to try and understand what exactly had just happened. So if everything you said is true, Amaterasu-sama, are you saying that the key is to get Belle to have sex with a regular Renard, and that will make them awaken and turn them into a nine-tailed Renard? Shinano asked, unsure of the implications of Amaterasu's investigation. That's right. I apologize for the rather explicit wording, but yes, I believe that if a Renard were to take in Belle's seeds into their womb, it begins the process where the nine-tailed mutation awakens. But it also seems like once it starts, they need to regularly mate and get more of his semen in order for it to work. It is very unusual, but since it's never happened before and there are no records, I have no way to verify it. But how sure can we be then? Amaji calmly asked, as she wasn't one that trusted speculations as much as she believed in evidence, theories that had been tested and proved. Easy. Akagi apparently had a solution as she stood up and walked to Belle. Everyone was confused, however, as she began stripping until she was left in her underwear. Everyone's confusion then turned to bewilderment. With the most natural and alluring voice she could manage, she finally explained her reasoning with two words. Fuck me. Hey, WH. Musasha and Shinano reacted instantly, shielding Belle from their own sister. No way. Nay, Musakai, why are you against it? You fucked him for 4 days straight. You have no right to complain. Even if you are his girlfriend now, you weren't the first time you did it with him. Caught red-handed, Musasha blushed bright red and nuzzled Belle's chest to avoid eye contact. Even then, she never let her tale's defense of her lover's body falter. You can't do that. Shinano, on the other hand, voiced her opposition, which was met with a grin from Akagi. Why not? We need to confirm the theory, don't we? It's very important after all, and the best way is to test the theory out. No? For that you need Belle and a regular Renard. Unless Amaji and Kaga are offering themselves to substitute me, then I am pretty much the only one who can do this. Or perhaps you want to do it, Shinano Ne-chan. But you see, you're already a nine-tailed Renard, so you don't qualify, do you? Seeing her smug smile irked her unlike anything before. For the first time, she regretted not being a Renard with a single tail. She had never been against having 9 tails, but now she wished with every fiber of her body to go back in time and change that. Alas, that was not possible, leaving her on the losing side of the argument. You know, as much as I hate doing this to you, Shinano, I have to agree with Akagi on this one. Getting her to mate with Belle would pretty much give us the answers we need. You can't be serious, Kamisama. Well, in the end, the decision is up to Belle, not like any of you can force him. The princesses then returned their attention to the boy in question, Akagi in particular being interested in his response. Belle, will you make love to me? Akagi, I meant not against being in a relationship with you. So far, despite your teasing, I have to say I enjoy spending time with you. But I would like it if we didn't just start it by having sex. I mean, Musasha was an exception. It all happened due to several coincidences. And while I have no reason to say no to you being my girlfriend, I think it'd be best to hold off sex for now. Like with the other girls, we should develop our relationship instead of skipping the first few steps. That, and you need to permission from the others. Alright, I can work with that. Belle, what is the C chance she gets P permission? Oblivious to the desperation in Shinano's voice, he thought about it for a minute or two before giving his opinion. Well, knowing Elise, she will jump at the occasion. Hearing that, Shinano frowned while Akagi smirked. Artoria doesn't really care or mind. So long as I love her, she will not complain. Shinano's and Akagi's respective facial expressions grew larger. Tsubaki and Kagaya, however, are not as simple, but knowing what they think of Akagi, I don't think they'll mind. Akagi grinned triumphantly while Shinano felt like grinding her head into dust, squirming on the ground at the defeat. Then I just need to get their permissions directly from them, and then you'll agree to date me. Yes, but we won't go anywhere near the topic of sex until we are both absolutely sure of our feelings for each other, okay? That was everything Akagi ever wanted or needed to hear, so without even a hint of doubt she agreed. Deal. I'll be a 9-tailed Renard by the end of the month. No one had the time to react to Akagi bursting out of the room and sprinting out on the road. She looked right and left before getting her bearings and aiming straight for the Stardust Garden. Belle, in the meantime, had turned his attention down to the ground as a cute yet angry Mumumu was being repeated on a loop by Shinano as her sisters crouched around her and tried consoling her. I'm sorry about Akagi Ne-sama. Though Kaga loved Akagi the most, that didn't mean she didn't care about her other sisters. Like Kaga was extremely loyal to Akagi, Akagi was very attached to Amaji, who in turn doted on Akari. Akari, on the other hand, was always hanging around Musasha, who always looked after Shinano. Shinano looked to Yamato, and the second eldest was particularly attached to Kaga. It was a perpetual cycle. There. Bell felt bad, but as he told Musasha, he had to let Shinano be the one to ask him, since he was afraid she'd just act on her emotions without giving it much thought. Meanwhile, Amaji slowly pat her head as the nine-tailed girl sniffed sadly. That's not fair. Hick. I was here first. Hick. Please welcome Ryu Lion and Astolfo Alvard on the arena. Today's winner will determine who moves on to the semifinal. Now who of these two great warriors will move on to the next round? The elf and the woman-looking man made their way onto the arena, which had been renovated once again with different obstacles and buildings. As soon as they arrived, they began analyzing each other as they waited for the match to start. Though Astolfo was one of the 12 paladins, his strength and weapon skill were deemed weak compared to the other knights. In a contest of strength, dexterity, endurance, and agility, he'd lose against most other level 5s. Even his magic strength wasn't extraordinary, but what was amazing about him to the point that made him a game changer were his spells and magic skills. In terms of close quarter, Ryu had the advantage, being far stronger, faster, and much more skilled. However, any of the abilities he had showed off against Yu-Gi-Oh would have been enough to turn the tide of the battle. The other issue is that being a magic swordsman, her other strength was magic, but she wasn't confident that her magic would do much good against him. This will be hard. Let the match start. Astolfo charged at Ryu with his sword to start off the battle, but found himself having to summon his spear very soon, as she easily overpowered him in a few swings. The new weapon gave the advantage of range and power, enough to make up for his lack of strength, skill, and speed. Not only that, but the lance was rather large, allowing him to easily use it to block Ryu's attacks. Ryu went in for a slash to his side, only to be blocked and pushed back. But no matter how many times Astolfo managed to counterattack, he always found himself being pushed back. Changing his plan, he decided to make use of the terrain, hiding behind pillars and using buildings to throw surprise attacks. I won't let you win so easily, Ryu-san. So that's the handsome mister you were talking about, Bell-chan. Yes. He's handsome, all right. Definitely prince class, I'll tell you. So, is that who you set your sights on, Belfast? Didn't expect our head maid to suddenly show romantic interest in someone of the opposite sex. You're always looking after us, perhaps it's time you got someone to look after you. Ara. Belfast is interested in someone. Despite the sudden implications, she remained completely unfazed, maintaining her gentle smile as she looked at the three girls who spoke about her apparent romantic interest. Please do not be mistaken. Though he is indeed a very handsome and kind man, he already has a woman-to-be by his side, a princess at that. I do not think he'd be interested in someone like me. Though I appreciate your enthusiasm towards the matter, Enterprise-san, Yorktown-sama, that is not the case. As for you, Hornet, I'd appreciate if you tried to behave yourself. The three sisters all looked at her apologetically as they heard her thoughts on the matter. Tell me honestly, Belfast, are you interested? Monarch-sama, please, I'm not crushing on anyone. I simply wish to repay him. Yeah, on your hands and knees. Oh. Enterprise proceeded to smack her younger sister Hornet for the inappropriate remark. All right, enough, girls. Let Belfast be. Yes, Iris-sama. La Black Luna. The blue sphere that surrounded Astolfo expanded as he blew into the horn. Ryu knew she could not avoid it, so she braced herself. But when it reached her, she felt her soul shaking as if she was being attacked spiritually. Goo. Both of them were exhausted, having worn each other down over the past 30 minutes. The spell, however, seemed to signal to the end of the match as the elf fell to her knees. I can't fall here. For Astrea-sama, for Elise, for Belle. As Astolfo approached her to land the final blow, she felt her fauna grow warmer. Just as the lance was brought down on her, she raised her wooden sword to block the attack. Having him right in front of her and caught by surprise, she unleashed her new spell. Rise, wings of justice, take flight and tear through my enemies. Ventus Justitia. A powerful blast shot out of her hand and slammed into Astolfo, sending him flying back. The knight's armor shattered and punched the air out of him. Before he could recover, their roles now reversed. Astolfo was knocked out as the wooden sword came down on his head, smacking his face into the dirt. What an amazing comeback. Ryu Lion of Astrea Familia wins. Ryu panted before turning to see her familiar and Belle cheering for her victory. With a tired smile, she fist-bumped the air as the cheers in the Colosseum grew louder before making her way back to her place. She'd take a long rest after that. Any Belle, what is this beautiful maid wanting to repay you story that I'm hearing from Artoria? With the match now over, she turned her attention to Belle. She had gotten the details of the date from the princess to see her progress. That's when she was happy that, like the others, Artoria too had become more confident after talking with their boyfriend. Her attention, though, fell on Belfast the moment she heard she was a gorgeous-looking maid. It was like the chance encounter in those books she read countless times that had been brought down by the gods. Seeing as there were 3 matches left before the semifinals, Ganesha had decided to have all 3 matches today so that they could move on to the penultimate round tomorrow. Giving everyone a break before starting the following match allowed Belle and Elise to slip out to have a quick trip to a food stall. "Come on, Belle, tell me." "It's nothing, Elise. I just helped a little girl whose sister, both of whom are maids, then wanted to thank me for taking my time to look after the child." "You say child as if she wasn't only 4 years younger than you. Anyways, you get the point." "Do I? Tell me what you think of this Belfast. Come on, was she pretty?" Elise smiled smugly as she kept nudging Belle, much to his annoyance. Knowing that she wouldn't give up, he relented and gave his honest opinion of the maid. "Fine. I think Belfast is really gorgeous. I was genuinely surprised, because she was so pretty. I thought she looked like a goddess. And I won't lie, I like the maid outfit. It looks really good on her. I dare say that only Shinano and Musasha have a face more beautiful than hers." Hearing that made the captain gasp in fake shock. Elise didn't mind if she wasn't the most beautiful to Belle as long as she was loved the same as the other girls. It was her desire, after all, for his love to be equal to everyone in the polyamory. Besides, no matter how kind Belle was, his honesty was also a charm of his, and it was inevitable that some of the girls were superior in some departments. Like she would win in the personality department, others like Musasha would definitely win for beauty and breast size. "More beautiful than me." "Well, you are still beautiful in my eyes, Elise, but you wanted me to be honest, so you reap what you sow. So yes, I do have a ranking in terms of beauty, and I'm sorry to say that Artoria, Shinano, and Musasha surpass you in that regard. And now Belfast too. Not only that, but she was very nice and always maintained a very elegant and calm demeanor. Ara, even I will end up blushing if you praise me that much. To think that Belle-sama thought so highly of me, I am honored to hear that." Turning around, Belle turned bright red as the maid he just spoke about stood right behind him. She smiled gently at Belle, and just as she said, she had a hint of a blush, though she remained calm despite the rather embarrassing confession. Placing one hand to her cheek while the other one held Belchan's hand, she approached the couple. "When did you start listening?" "If I remember correctly, it started from 'Come on, Belle, tell me.' Kyun, you heard everything." "Hee, perhaps I did." "Ua." Belle felt like crawling in a hole and dying. "Oh, you really are beautiful." Elise looked at her impressed. "Fufu, thank you, though I have to say Belle-sama really knows how to please a woman with his words." "He does, doesn't he? He is a real sweet talker, so don't let him talk too much, else you'll be finding yourself wooed before you know it, and if you let him in your bed, you won't be able to leave." "I will take that into consideration." Taking his attention away was the little sister who, like a saint, distracted him from the embarrassment he was feeling. "Hello, Belle-sama." The Renard crouched down, trying to hide from the 2 teasing women. "Belle-chan, they are being mean." There. She left Belfast's side and proceeded to pat the crouched down Belle, much to the amusement of the 2 girls. "Oh, hey there. What's going on?" Hornet, why are you here?" An energetic girl with blonde hair tied in pigtails skipped her way over. Her outfit was unusual for a city, borderline lewd. She wore a black bikini top, black shorts, with a black and yellow jacket covering her body and an equally black and yellow hat. In a way, Belle was reminded of Tiona, but had the feeling that when the situation called for it, she would be more serious than the bubbly Amazon. "Oh, I saw you and Belchan leaving, so I thought I'd tag along, and man, what a surprise. To think you'd be sneaking out to meet your secret lover. This again. I already told you that he's not my boyfriend." Belle in the meantime had to make a double take as he noticed how Elise's eyes just shone at the sight of yet another beauty, clearly marking more targets to add to polyamory. He worried if this side of Elise was brought out due to him. If so, he'd have to apologize to every girl that was going to get targeted. Apologies, allow me to introduce you. This is Hornet White, the youngest of the 3 white siblings. She is a very energetic and airheaded girl, so I hope you can forgive her for her attitude." "Hey, what's that supposed to mean?" The blonde girl looked offended, pouting her hardest at the maid, who only slightly giggled adorably in response. "Sorry, Belfast. I lost sight of her for half a second, and before I knew it, she homed in on you." "Hornet, what did I say about disturbing Belfast?" Belle and Elise turned to the voice that belonged to another pair of stunning-looking women. They both had long silver-white hair and wore similarly styled clothing. Perfect timing, actually. These two are Enterprise and Yorktown, the other two siblings and the older sisters of Hornet. Yep, these two amazing girls are my dear sisters. Feel free to call them Enty and Yorkie. Enterprise looked at her sister with a devious smile. And what can they call you? Of course they can call me Horny. Having shouted it out loud, everyone around them had heard her loud and clear. A moment of silence reigned over them as Hornet turned red, realizing what she said. Bell suddenly felt much better about himself, while Enterprise and Elise tried their best to keep their laughter from escaping, though it wasn't working really well. Belfast and Yorktown too, despite their calm demeanor, couldn't help but smile widely when she heard that. Why? You brought this on yourself, Horny. Okay, I get it, so please stop calling me Horny. Sure thing. Either way, it's nice to be meeting you at last, Belsan. As my little sister said, you can call me Yorkie if you want, though I would prefer Wani-chan honestly. Nay Sama, what are you asking of someone you just met? Both Enterprise and Hornet were surprised with their sister's forwardness. Though they had gotten used to it over the years, it still was shocking when she simply asked someone to call her Wani-chan. Why not? He looks so adorable. I feel like cuddling him. I mean, just look at how fluffy he looks. Hee. Though he is very fluffy indeed, I'd be careful. He is quite the monster in bed. He'll keep you awake all night and exhaust you until the morning. What dash? Elise. Ara. Yorktown, however, didn't seem to mind the intimate information, though she did become a little flustered as shown by her slight blush. Belfast too looked away, while Hornet and Enterprise blushed bright red. The only one who was confused was Belia, who turned to her reliable sister. Wani-chan, what does that mean? As if only remembering then that there was a child, everyone froze and turned to her, wondering what to say, when Bell decided to give his best excuse. Elise is just saying she sometimes mistakes me for a monster in the night because of my red eyes and my tail. It was a terrible explanation, and he felt himself cringe at that, but to all their surprise, Bell-chan seemed to believe that. What? That is horrible, Elise-san. How can you mistake your boyfriend for a monster? That's it just sorta happens, you know? After having been in the dungeon for a while. While the girls praised him for his quick thinking, Bell shot an apologetic glance at his lover, as she was used as a scapegoat. Elise in response only pouted at him, as she was now being scolded by the young maid. I get it, Bell-chan, I'm sorry. You should tell that to Bell-sama. It's okay, Bell-chan, I'll always forgive Elise, no matter what she does. Elise felt giddy hearing that and tightly cuddled Bell right in front of all the girls. That's why Bell-sama is so strong. What? The response had Bell completely stumped. Well, I think that being able to forgive someone is a strength. So Bell-sama must be strong. Bell felt himself zone out as he began piecing together the different conversations, triggering his memory to finally remember. What Zeus had said, what he meant and wished for Bell to understand. He finally saw it. What in his mind seemed like a thick mist through which he couldn't find his way now suddenly had a ray of light shining through. Flashback: Bell was only 10 at the time that Zeus decided to tell him of his familiar's legacy, their legend, and eventually their downfall. To say he was furious upon learning of the betrayal was an understatement. He was absolutely wrathful to hear that the greatest heroes since the Age of Heroes had been cast aside for one failure after loyally defending the city for 1,000 years. How can you still hold such hope, Grandpa? Because I have forgiven myself and I forgave them. Now it's just a matter of them forgiving themselves. Bell was understandably left puzzled at the wording of the wise old man. Why did you forgive them? After all they have done. And why would they need to forgive themselves? They did that willingly. Zeus, however, only chuckled seeing the irate Renard, his tail swishing angrily. Calming down the boy with a head pat, he began speaking again. My dear little Bell, you are still a child, so it's no wonder you don't understand. As a matter of fact, many adults these days don't understand the meaning of forgiveness itself. It is a virtue that is often hard to comprehend. But do not be angry, Bell. It is not worth it. Don't hate them nor harbor a grudge because you know you are better than that. I know you are. But Zeus put down the book he was making and turned his attention fully to his little grandson. Bell, you will live far longer than any race on Gakai, so I know you will see with your own eyes the truth. But know this. There is more to a person than you realize. Humans are emotional beings that can lash out in unimaginable ways if pushed to their limits. We, both mortals and gods, are fickle beings that often don't think before we act. Despite the continuous lessons we try to teach the younger generation, we tend to forget the very lesson we try to impart. Despite the long history which shows us our mistakes, No matter how hard you teach someone to be better, those mistakes are bound to happen again and again. This is why you often see history repeat itself. There will always be people who see less than others and those that see more than others. And it is often too late that people see that they are committing a mistake, one that's been made countless times before. What I'm trying to say here is that though Loki and Freya may have done unspeakable things, you might later see that they regret their mistakes. Well, maybe not Freya, but you know. Bel silently listened to Zeus, as for once he was not being silly, rather he was being awfully serious. The path of a hero is a treacherous one, Bel, filled with obstacles at every turn. But we of Zeus and Hera Familia take pride in who we are. No matter how hard it is, no matter how much we cry, lose, and maybe beat down, the one thing we never do is give up. We always rise back up from the ashes of our defeats, stronger than ever. It is not by raising our swords, shields, or by weaving a magic spell that we are deemed heroes. No, it is because we put our lives on the line for the sake of others. Out of our own wishes are we heroes. Noble and valiant, we march forward overcoming every one of those obstacles, but not alone. No hero was ever alone. Bel, one of the most important things is that when you reach Orario, you need to find reliable companions, people who you would entrust your life to, who you would know they would have your back no matter what. But Grandpa, what does have to do with forgiving them? Haha, right, that. Bel, do you think heroes are strong? His frown was instantly wiped out and excitement brimmed in his eyes as his favorite topic came to light. Of course, they are the strongest. You are right, they are, but there are many types of strengths, Bel. One of them is a virtuous hero and forgiveness is a virtue. The cute tilt of Bel's head told Zeus all he needed. This is complicated, but listen carefully, Bel. I know you will come to understand in the future. Forgiveness, like every other word we make up, it's something we give a meaning to. Why do we forgive someone? How do we forgive someone? When do we forgive them? That is all up to you to decide. But it is a hard decision. Would you be able to forgive someone who killed? Never. Even if he did it to protect his only child. Can you really blame them? Well, I don't know. That is why there is more to the cause behind forgiving someone. There are circumstances, emotions, judgment, fairness, and so many more things to consider. But how is it a strength? Does it help you beat monsters? No, because it is an internal strength, Bel. It's got nothing to do with how fast you can swing a sword or how hard you can hit someone. It is an emotional strength that comes from the heart. You say you could never forgive Loki, but perhaps in the future you will see that there is more to her than you think, and perhaps then you will find it in yourself to give her another chance. But it will only work if you do so from the bottom of your heart. Only then will your mind rest easy and the burden you carry be lifted. You can't do it simply because it is the right thing to do or because it is unfair to them. It must be something you wholeheartedly believe in, otherwise it will hold no meaning, to them, to you, or to anyone. And not many could forgive those who wronged them. That is why if you can one day manage, it will make you stronger than anyone else. A power born from one's heart. Only someone who is strong in soul can pull this off. And you too will one day understand, be it in a year, in 10 or 100 or even 1,000. I do not blame Loki. She was as greedy and naive as any god who just descended. Nor do I blame the people who live in constant fear of the monsters. That is why I forgave them. Because that is what we fought for. It would only ruin my children's sacrifice if I couldn't do this much. All that's important is that the people are safe. That is how Zeus Familia always worked. For the sake of the others. My only request to you, Bel, is that you try to understand and forgive Loki. Do not hold a grudge, for it will only ruin you and make you lose sight of the path ahead of you. Also, you asked me how I hold hope, right? Well, knowing that they will be the ones to one day pick up the banner of the heroes we left behind is how I keep having hope. One day they too will rise to defend Gokai. Always remember this, Bel. 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 He blinked and realized that Elise was waving her hand in front of his face. Belfast and the other girls also looking at him with worried faces. Oh, I must have zoned out. Sorry, it's just that what Belchan said made me remember something of important. I did. Yes, and it was very helpful. Thank you, Belchan. I think it might even help me in my match. His hand ruffled her hair, gently drawing out giggles out of the child. Hee. Speaking of which, why are you two here? Isn't the next match starting soon? We just wanted to take a break and walk around. Besides, Bel's match is after Artoria's, so there is plenty of time. I will cheer for you, Belsama. Everyone giggled as Belchan declared her support for him with bright eyes. Thank you, Belchan. Remember Artie win without killing her, and I'll let you fluff my tails all you want. Belle could see the glint in her eyes as he mentioned the reward he had ready for her. And of course, if you kill her, we won't be able to see each other since you'd be arrested or banished from Orario. That would be terrible. It would, wouldn't it? So do your best. Before she could react, he gently pecked her on the cheek and began running off, leaving the blushing Artoria to stammer as the match began. Let me hear your cheers for the Princess of Britannia as she once again takes to the battlefield. Facing her today will be her arch-nemesis Morgana. Who of these two terrifying beauties will take today's match and win over the heart of the Renard of the Takemikazuchi familia? Belle felt like hitting Ivory as he presented the participants of the match. For one, his heart already belonged to Artoria, and secondly, there was no way he'd fall for Morgana with her current attitude. But he didn't worry since he had faith in his princess's strength. Go Artoria! Woo! Belle along with his girlfriends cheered on their collective lover. Down in the arena, Artoria smiled much to the annoyance of Morgana, not only because her sister was happy and supported, but also because her ideal husband was cheering for her enemy, not paying any attention to her whatsoever, and that wouldn't do. No, not at all. I will make you pay for everything you've done. Even now you steal what I want. Belle is not an object, and it was he who accepted me. For that I will forever be grateful. But of all the things that I hold dear in this world, I won't let you take the person I love the most away from me no matter what. Excalibur, show this tyrant her place. Ivory hadn't even given the signal for the match to start, and the two dashed forwards. Swallowed in their emotions, they tossed aside the match to have a real battle to determine who was right. Whose emotions would prevail in this long conflict would finally be decided today once and for all. Rara! Excalibur and the Black Staff collided, causing a shockwave to rattle the Colosseum as the full power of two irregularly powerful level 5s clashed against each other. Holy shit, those two crazies are ready to shed blood for Belle. There was an eerie silence amongst the crowd as the only audible sound were the two metallic weapons grinding against each other. The two stayed locked in position with nearly stoic faces, but their eyes furiously glaring at each other. Everyone could see how much emotion was behind those eyes, and both of them showed more than anyone had ever seen before, except for Belle, who had seen a completely different Artoria while on the date. The silence didn't last long, however. There was after all a battle to win. A decisive battle that would put an end to the war between the two women. In an instant, chaos descended. Their first opening was nothing compared to what the two fought with now. A flurry of attacks, each one stronger and faster than before, rocking the arena harder and harder. Unlike most, if not all, they held nothing back against each other. Each slash and thrust aimed to cut through each other, spilling blood until one side died. Nonetheless, Morgana was a mage and Artoria a knight, so it was to no one's surprise that LaFay began losing ground bit by bit. Clearly it frustrated the white-haired woman, as a vile scowl marred her beautiful visage. Trying to be smart about it rather than stubbornly power through, she tried using the surrounding to her advantage, but it didn't matter when your enemy was Artoria. Hiding behind a building to slow her down, she was surprised when the princess just slammed through the house like it was made of paper, sending rubble flying as it all but collapsed. You goddamn gorilla of a woman, says the dog who can't do anything but run. HMPH, a dog can still serve her master better than an unruly gorilla. Why you? Artoria slashed down, trying to hit Morgana as she evaded by hiding behind the pillar. It was all for naught as the royal girl slashed through the construct, a pillar so hard that even Kratos couldn't destroy, but it wasn't a clean cut, rather it was just an overbearing power that crushed everything as the whole thing came crumbling down like a crushed cookie. Damn you, you and your fucking unnatural wild strength. You're nothing but a freak of nature. Oh yeah, stay still and let me put an end to you. In your dreams. Chanting, she weaved together her spell. The massive circle of light shone from beneath her as she summoned thousands of small blue fire blades to cut through the princess. Artoria jumped back to protect herself from the attack as she rapidly slashed all of them with her divine blade. Her incredible reflexes helped her intercept each small blade, though some managed to nick the surface of her skin, cutting her arms and legs. Morgana, with her fairy queen skill, spread her colorful wings and allowed her to use her wings to amplify the effect of her magic blades flying towards Artoria. This put the blonde warrior to a massive disadvantage as the queen now used ranged attacks from a safe distance. Each moment the battle dragged longer, she got more tired and her chances to win decreased. The idea of losing this match was dreadful, and the more she thought about it, the more it made Artoria mad. Belle would have been sad, losing his smile. That precious smile. And it made her blood boil. I won't let anyone take Belle's smile away. Don't get in my way. Artoria for the first time lost any semblance of reason and went berserk. With feral battle cry she was surrounded in black and red light, enveloping her like the bud of a flower. Oya! What's going on? It seems like the princess is evolving just like the queen did. Suddenly the dark rose bloomed, revealing a much different princess than anyone had seen before. Her silver armor and her blue and red outfit were now jet black with red cracks spreading like luminescent veins across her entire body. A small iron visor covered her eyes and her golden hair no longer shimmered, instead turning to a dull yellow. Oh no! Arthur, having seen that form just once before, knew the consequences of that transformation and couldn't help but worry. He had seen how strong of a boost it provided and unbelievably powerful she became when in that form, but he had also witnessed how destructive it was both to others and herself. It put a considerable strain on her body, but also made her see everyone as enemies. Oh, ladies and gents, the dark rose descends on the battlefield. What will happen now? Artoria was stoic, showing no emotion as she took her stance, and in the very next instant she was a step away from Morgana. The sudden increase in speed shocked even the fairy-enhanced woman, just like every other executive of the top-tier familiars. What the? When did she get here? She barely raised her staff to block, only it turned out that the power behind the hit sent her flying like a pinball. She hit the ground and bounced off into the wall. That's when a dark energy gathered around Excalibur. As if coating the blade with a laser-like energy, it increased the size of the weapon drastically. Not only that, but it made it more deadly than ever before. Then, like it was a hobby, the princess began shooting energy rays across the battlefield, raining down hellfire on Morgana. The entire arena was nuked and the barrier flickered as it began losing power before the mighty devastation caused by Artoria. Morgana did her best to defend herself, but the versatility of Artoria's new power made her near invincible. Not only did it increase all her stats, but it also gave her a new powerful energy to manipulate. From the looks of her current usage, it looked like she could use it however she saw fit. Coat the blade with energy, extend her reach, shoot blasts of energy, shoot beam attacks, use long-range attacks or short-range, area of effect or single targets. Whatever she needed, the dark energy would do for her. Moreover, it didn't look like she'd run out of steam anytime soon. Morgana, give up. Shouting that was Arthur. Seeing no other option, he shouted at the queen to give up the match. Once the match was over, Artoria would either stop or he himself would intervene. The fairy, however, hesitated. She hated the idea of losing, particularly to her nemesis. But no matter how prideful she was not a fool. She knew when to give up. Gritting her teeth in frustration, she decided she'd bear with the humiliation. She too had to admit that Artoria was too strong, and her defeat was just proof of that. I surrender. That's it. The match has finished. Artoria Pendragon is the winner. Despite that, however, the blonde beauty didn't seem to be done, slowly marching towards the downed fairy. Hey, didn't you hear, you barbaric woman? The match is over. Even so, she kept on walking closer and closer. The arena fell silent as the situation suddenly took a turn for the worse. Arthur began shouting at her to stop, but the pleads fell on deaf ears. Her feet stopped only when her path was blocked by Morgana. Artoria then raised her sword, much to the shock to the others, and swung down. No head went rolling though, as a bright white and red blade deflected her attack. Stopped by Belle, the princess prepared to deliver another attack when he suddenly impaled the ground with his divine blade. Leaving it behind, he walked up to her without any kind of worry. Artoria continued her attack and swung at Belle, to the horror of everyone watching. The blade, however, stopped short of his neck, mysteriously frozen just before she could finish him off. Belle, on the other hand, was not surprised. He could feel that Artoria was still there. Her hand trembled and her mouth wavered, showing that she was resisting. Placing his hands on the cold steel of the dark Excalibur, he pushed it aside effortlessly. The sword dropped out of her hands, clattering down to the ground. He stepped closer until they were face to face. Slowly and gently he cupped her right cheek, caressing with his thumb, while his other hand pushed a strand of her hair behind her ear. His rubellite eyes stared deeply into where her eyes would be. He knew she too was looking. He could feel her gaze staring back at him. You did great, Artie. But this is enough. He slowly raised a hand and grabbed the visor covering her eyes before removing it. As soon as he dropped it to the ground, it shattered into so many pieces that it vanished. Now come home. I won't let you fluff my tail otherwise, he. Flashing her the smile she adored so much broke the binds that kept her tied to her mind. With tears in her eyes, she grasped his hand and softly squeezed it before returning his loving smile with one of her own. I guess I have to wake up now. Wouldn't want to miss any time I could be snuggling with your tails. Belle pulled her in an embrace as Ivory congratulated Artoria on her victory, knowing that it was now safe and he wouldn't get nuked if he spoke. Exhausted but safe, the blonde knight allowed herself to faint into the strong arms of her lover, who caught her and carried her away like the princess she was. He gave her a kiss on the forehead and thanked her for her work before walking back to the VIP stands. Behind this all was Morgana. She was protected by Belle, but not out of love. She was ignored and left behind, discarded like a magic sword the witch charges had ran out. It should have upset her, which it did. But more than even that, she felt sad, almost heartbroken. Not because she lost, but because the Renard didn't even acknowledge her presence. Even after defending her, he didn't turn to ask if she was okay, instead only focusing on Artoria like nothing else in the world mattered. No matter how heroic or caring Belle was, there were times where he too would prioritize other people. She realized that perhaps her feelings towards Belle were more genuine than she would have liked them or believed them to be. Though it wasn't particularly late, the sun was already starting to set. The final match for the day was scheduled to take place in the evening and finish just in time for people to go and enjoy their dinner. While the break between the matches was taking place, guild members and other maintenance people were repairing the arena, taking particular notice of the barrier, fearing it may be reaching its limit after Artoria's last nuke attack. They hoped that it would resist, but considering that the final competitors were Belle and Tanjiro, some held doubts about that. Tanjiro was getting prepared with his fellow demon slayers, giving him last-minute tips and training. Belle in the meantime noticed Loki leaning on the edge of the stand, at the far back of the room, looking at the walled city. Feeling oddly curious by her solemn look despite always being so cheerful and playful, he decided to approach her. Perhaps it was time he confronted her like Takemikazuchi and Zeus had told him. "Loki-sama? Why the long face?" Turning around, she was surprised to see that the Renard was leaning on the railing like she was. She had been so deep in thought she hadn't noticed him arrive. "You know, I can't tell if you're trying to be respectful or you're being spiteful, but whatever the case, I'm sure I deserved it." He would be lying if he said he wasn't surprised by her response, but decided to stay quiet to let her continue. "Do you know what I'm thinking?" "Not really, no. I was thinking about Zeus." Now that definitely got Belle's attention. He'd finally get the answers his grandpa told him to look for. It would be today that he'd decide what to do. He could feel it. What about him? And why so suddenly? Why? Well, it's just seeing all these amazing children competing just kinda reminded me of the good old times. Zeus loved to hold what he called power tournaments. Like this, he would have people compete to see who is the strongest. Well, it's no surprise that he almost always won, with Renard being the only other member to win. There were some rare occasions where other people would win, but it was fun nonetheless. However, something about her phrases stood out to him. Good old times. Yep, the good old times when that old-timer was in charge. Renard was annoying but manageable thanks to Zeus, though he tended to perv around quite a lot. Glancing over, she saw how she smiled fondly at the memories. It went against everything he knew. He always saw her as an irresponsible god, who goofed around never doing anything properly. She was silly and frankly pathetic, but what she showed right now was more mature and sentimental than he would have imagined. That's when it clicked to him. Both Zeus and Takemikazuchi had told him there was more to Loki than met the eye. Was this what they meant? The mask she wore to hide her more vulnerable part. "Say, Belle, I feel like you know about what happened 15 years ago, don't you?" "I do. I have heard how Orario turned their backs on them after they failed." "That's right, me, Freya, the adventurers and the people betrayed the two greatest familiars of heroes that this age had ever produced. We unjustly held them accountable when we were not there to fight. Me and my familiar ran away from the Black Dragon as a matter of fact. Do you know I used to feel about that?" Belle looked at her, her eyes wide open, hiding nothing. The two shades of red eyes stared at each other until Belle shook his head. Proud, strong and happy, giddy even. Yet she had no semblance of a smile when she said that. Her voice was empty, almost melancholic when she spoke. "Do you know how I see it now that I look back?" Belle once again shook his head, but deep inside he knew where this is going. He knew exactly what she felt because that is how he felt too. "It makes me sick to the core. I am disgusted and so much more with my behavior from back then. I had recently descended from heaven and still thought of this world as a game, a joke. We were mighty gods and we couldn't die. Then Zeus fell and I took my chance to take my place as the strongest. I felt so accomplished. But that didn't last long. It only took less than a year for me to miss their presence. Their children, the smiles they brought to the people, and even Renard and Zeus. Never before did I think I'd miss those two, but I did as a matter of fact miss them. Life was suddenly so boring, so dull and so empty. But that was only the shallowest of reasons. After getting off the high horses and looked back, I felt a hole in my heart. I felt true pain for the first time. People both I and my familia saw as mentors and friends were gone. It never occurred to me as an immortal, but once a mortal dies, that's it. There is no coming back. The concept of death never really made sense to me until now. The loneliness and pain that one experiences. When someone goes away and you know they can never come back. But more than that was the vicious betrayal. How could the people of Orario do that? They do not risk their lives every day to fight monsters. Isn't it because of those heroes that they can live comfortably in their homes? Then what about me? I too do not know the price and fear they did, but I do know that I live in constant fear that one of my children might never return, just like any other god. So how did Zeus feel like when he lost thousands? His entire family? What did it feel like having all your connections ripped away from you like that? To wake up one day and know they wouldn't be coming home. I was his best friend, and I wasn't there for him. Rather, I was against him. Because to me it was all a game. He'd come back one day, right? He was banished, but he was always a persistent fool. He'd come back for sure. Then a month passed, and then a year. In that time I lost many children. There was no longer Zeus and Hera to protect us and hold our hands. The dangers of the dungeon and the city became more prominent than ever before. I understood how it felt to grieve for your children. Even the most recent and distant recruits brought a pain I never experienced before. Young and ambitious smiles that dove into the dungeon and were never seen again. And Zeus had lost everyone and everything he cared and built. Even his closest ones. You know, Zeus was renowned for being a pervert. What no one mentioned, however, was how caring he was. I'd say I'm extremely attached to my children, now more than ever, having understood the value of life. But if there is one person who was more caring and loving of his children, it was Zeus. Whenever they went on expeditions, missions, or even the simplest dungeon runs, he was always there to greet them back with a smile. To smile was his way as a hero, after all. If there was one thing that could get him to stop peeking at a woman bathing, it was his children return. It did not matter what he was doing or where he was. When his children came back, he would drop everything to make sure he was there. And when he did lose children, it was heartbreaking to witness. He'd smile and put up a tough look in public, honoring his children like the heroes they were, by sending them off with a smile. But I still remember the sleepless nights Hera and I often spent to look after him. I didn't understand back then. Now I do, but it's too late for that. Belle didn't know what to say, instead only remembering how his grandpa mourned every year on the same month, of the same day at the same exact hour. In front of the altar he had raised in name of his fallen children, he would pray for them to have a better life and rest easy without ever missing it once. Soon others too began seeing their mistakes. Everless became rampant and the dungeon began pushing back. Hundreds of adventurers died by the end of the first year since their fall. Thousands by the second year. That is how everyone understood how Zeus and Hera were the heroes that Orario needed but rejected and now lost. Not that we deserved them in the first place. Sorry, it was a long roundabout to answer the question, but how do I feel now? I feel terrible, guilty, ashamed. I am many things, but heroic and proud are not one of them. And those were the two things I was meant to be for him and Hera. To take up his banner. And look where I am now. Drinking and perving around. My familia may be the strongest, but we are a far cry from the peak of those two behemoths. We only reached down to the 59th floor when they were scavenging the 70th just for fun. Me, Astrea and Ganesha all wished things could be different. If you had the chance to go back in time and change just one single thing, would it be that then? Loki slowly turned to Belle with a sad smile and nodded. Yeah, if there is anything that I could do to just get one chance to change that, I would. Alas, reality is not so easily changeable. We can only live in guilt knowing what we did killed thousands and could have saved millions. Belle remained quiet for a moment. He had always hated Loki, but this changed things, completely. He knew how she felt, and though she was a god, there was no need for a supernatural ability to know that she was being honest. How could he hate someone who regretted it so much? Of course, no matter how much they regret it, you can't always forgive them for the crimes they committed. But something about her somehow reminded him of himself. Perhaps it was the kind nature he inherited from his parents, or the righteousness that was taught him by Zeus, or perhaps the need to select what was best for everyone that was inspired in him by the heroes he loved. But he couldn't fault Loki no matter how he tried. She would give anything to make up for it. Say, have you ever met him? There was no lying to a god beside just saying he met him wouldn't hurt anyone. Yes. Loki had just randomly asked, so when he said yes and detected no lie was obviously surprised. You did? Yes, on my way to Orario I part ways with him. Where is he? His ears, however, drooped down as he shook his head. I don't know. He could have went south towards Olympia, a place which would fit him quite well. Settle down and finally relax. Right. He would deserve the rest after a millennia. Or maybe east to find warriors to rebuild the familiar. Or he could have went west to look for his allies. But if you ask me, the most probable direction is north. North. But there is nothing north. Loki looked confused as she couldn't remember there being anything but a devastated wasteland. But there is. Far north beyond Asgard, beyond the village I am from, beyond the mountains, lies Dragon Valley. And beyond that gate, up in the lost world, that is where you will find the one who brought upon the fall of the Zeus and Hera familia. The Black Dragon. Exactly. Her look of confusion turned to shock. What could a god do against that calamity? In that moment it didn't occur to Loki that the location of the Black Dragon was unknown and that Bel had suddenly revealed that he knew where it was. But why? Who knows? Perhaps it's because he has yet to give up. He may still hold hope for Orario. And he intends to buy every single second he can against the Black Dragon for Orario. To let us prepare and be ready so we don't end up like the Zeus familia. Why does he feel the need to keep fight dash? Because isn't that who he is? No matter how desperate a situation is, no matter how many times you fall and cry, it's okay as long as you get back up. It is not the one who wields the sword, the one who picks up the shield, or the one weaves his magic to cure the wounds of others that makes a hero. Only those who truly put their lives on the line for the sake of others can be truly called heroes. Scream your wishes and let your dreams take flight. That is what will make you the greatest and coolest hero, right? Bel turned to Loki and smiled, a genuine and bright smile. Loki felt her breath taken away as she looked. It was a perfect image. Bel and Zeus overlapped in her mind as she remembered when he himself told her the same thing. She felt taken back in time and tears soon started filling her eyes. Yes, you're right. It is who he was and is. That is why you can't give up, Loki. It may be true that you haven't done much in the past 15 years, but later is better than never. If you truly meant what you said, what you feel and wish to live up to Zeus, then you already know what to do. The banner of the heroes still stands. It just waits for you to pick it up. Me. You said you regretted your actions, but we can't go back in time to amend for our mistakes, but we can make it right. In fact, no one else can. There will be no heroes if you don't take the lead, and if that were to happen when the monster comes, then there will be no hope and everyone's sacrifice will be in vain. Can you let that happen? Memories came rushing in. Zeus and Hera's familia, her own children, both the ones that are here and those that are gone, rushed through her. All their efforts gone to waste. All the precious lives they gave up for this future. Loki knew the answer. She could not let that happen. Not on her pride as a person, as a goddess and mother figure to her children. No, I can't let that happen. Everything Zeus, Hera, and my children went through. I won't let them forget everything they gave up for this. Bel smiled hearing that. He was indeed too hasty to judge people. Zeus and Take were right, and he had learnt much today thanks to this. It would take a while to get used to Loki, but he believed he'd be able to get used to the idea. Thanks, Bel, that really helped, and sorry. I should be the one helping you, yet here you are teaching me how to live with my life and make up for my mistakes. Take Mikazuchi-sama said you gods are no perfect beings and that we seldom realize that you too need help. Loki, it might take a while, but if you take these small steps, you will not regret it. Small? Well, you can't rush everything. You got to start small and slowly build up, otherwise you will find yourself crumbling before the mountain of responsibilities, stress and duties that await you. Gotcha, then small steps it is, but make no mistake, I will no longer hold back. Well, I bored you enough and you have a match to get to anyways. I'll catch you around. Await the good news. Loki turned to leave when Bel spoke up again, his tone much softer now than before. Thank you, Loki. You might not realize, but I have also learnt a lot from this. It helped you just as much as it did me. Hee, whatever it was, happy to help, kiddo. That's right. We shouldn't hold back anything. Let my desires free and scream my wishes. But don't judge everything for what it appears to be, but see for what it could be. I forgave Loki, and now it is just a matter of forgiving myself. For always thinking that I was weak. That is why I always trained and fought until my body coughed blood and could no longer move. But such a stubborn method is not my way, nor will it work out in the end. Unnoticed to him, his eyes gained a new glint to them. A blazing ember that was born at the heart of its pupils. A sign of his soul awakening. It began an irreversible change in Bell that would soon be witnessed by everyone in Orario, which would alter history forever. There you are, Bell. The match is going to start soon. Sorry, I'm ready. Not quite. Bell was confused when Yorichi said that and held his sword out to him. No offense to Tsubaki, but I have a request to make. I wish to see your skill with the breath styles. I heard from Takumi Kazuchi-sama that you have learnt them. The divine weapon, however, is not fit as a weapon for you to perform those moves, not to your full potential. That's why I want you to use mine. Like this, you won't even have to worry about it breaking. It has the Durandal effect. Bell looked excited. To be able to not only hold but use the sword of the legendary swordsman was like a dream come true. Even so, he turned around to look at Tsubaki, who only nodded with a giggle. She couldn't refuse him when he looked so excitedly cute. Don't worry, Bell. I won't be hurt or offended just because you don't use my weapon all the time. Bell's face lit up like a Christmas tree and his ears wiggled like crazy, much to the enjoyment of his girlfriends, before turning back to Yorichi and nodding. He tightly gripped the hilt and unsheathed it. It shimmered under the light of the now rising moon, showing the beautifully crafted blade that had been forged 300 years old ago. I look forward to seeing yours and Tanjiro's performance. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's final match. This match will decide who the last semifinalist is going to be. Not only that, but according to our polls, this match is the most anticipated match so far. It seems a lot of people couldn't wait to see these two competitors face off. Bell's popularity and Tanjiro's use of breath techniques had gathered a large crowd. Though it hadn't started well, Tanjiro had shown great potential and adaptability in his first match, and many expected to see great things from him. On one side, we have Bell Yamato Katsuki of Takumi Kazuchi Familia, while on the other is Tanjiro Kamadu of Amaterasu Familia. Who of these two will win the next match? Let us see right now. Let the match begin. The two of them unsheathed their blades and stared at each other. Unlike most battles, they didn't immediately start by rushing each other, making the audience watch with bated breaths, only wondering who would make the first move. I've been looking forward to this match, Katusuka-san. Please don't hold back. Me too, Tanjiro-san. Now let's see who's stronger. Both their swords burst with water, the liquid clinging to the steel surface as it magically floated around the blade of the blade. They dashed forwards with mirroring movements. Performing the same actions and forms, they countered each other perfectly. But Tanjiro, the ever-analytical person he was, immediately noticed something. Just as Bell had shown against Rex, he was abnormally powerful. He was not only faster but also clearly stronger. He thought about it and wondered why that was. Was it a skill that was strengthening him, or was it his better mastery of the total concentration breathing technique? Bell also noticed how almost immediately the red-haired swordsman tried to analyze everything about his opponent and saw his attention waver. If it is a skill, then how long does it last? How do I konwa? He didn't notice as Bell placed his leg between his feet with his knee behind Tanjiro's own leg. The push made him lose balance, tripping back. With rapid reaction, he immediately flipped himself back up and jumped back to avoid the watery arc that slashed through the rough ground where he had been standing. Bell remained unnervingly quiet. It surprised the demon slayer how different Bell was when fighting. His smile was wiped away, his eyes no longer had that warmth to them, and his attitude showed no trace of its usual cheeriness. His attacks were vicious, each one aiming to end you in a heartbeat. Tanjiro, though, had been in similar situations, often outmatched in strength and speed. But he had something most others didn't have: smell, tactics, and an incredible ability to adapt. Using his godly sense of smell, he loyally followed his nose to predict and just narrowly dodge whatever attacks he couldn't intercept and block. Arcs and streaks of azure water cut through his harari and his thick jacket. Trying his best to look for each small detail that could help him gain the advantage, he began letting some of the less lethal attacks connect, albeit marginally. In the distraction made from their water techniques clashing, however, he once again missed some of the movements made by Bell, and before he knew it, his legs had been swept again and he now found himself on the ground. Goo! A knee to the face sent him barreling across the arena. As soon as he got up, Bell was already on him, performing the 8th form, which brought down a waterfall along his blade. The impact of the attack cracked the ground beneath Tanjiro as it couldn't stand the force, while his knees bent and his bones creaked under the pressure. The floor ruptured like a spider web while the pressurized water sliced through his skin, painfully drawing blood. Deflecting the attack, he distanced himself to regain his breath. The battlefield was drenched with water from the clash of their techniques. For nearly 10 minutes the two went against each other with their water-breathing styles, matching each other move for move. He thought hard and realized that he'd have to catch the Renard off guard to land a decisive hit if he wanted to even get the advantage. He concentrated on the muscles of his legs. He visualized each one in detail, drawing the maximum out of his limbs. Bell saw how his stance changed slightly and moved behind the closest pillar just as Tanjiro dashed forwards. The lightning slammed into the stone tower, completely stopping the attack. The red-haired swordsman was visibly shocked as he was easily countered, not expecting Bell to react so rapidly. Not bad, but you lose sight of your surroundings. The demon slayer let go of his sword and backed off, though he was surprised when the white-haired man didn't move to attack at all, instead grabbing the hilt of the black sword and pulling it free with his level 5 strength. The eldest Kamadou sibling caught the sword as it was tossed to him. Though I use punches and kicks, we are fighting to see how skilled we are with our breath styles. It wouldn't seem fair if you didn't have your sword. Tanjiro nodded and raised his sword when, to his confusion, Bell took a stance similar to Zenitsu's. But two people can play at that game. Tanjiro felt the hair on his body stand up. The deadly bloodlust that the Renard emitted reminded him of Musen. Understanding immediately what he meant, he did what Bell had done before and hid behind the pillar. However, a blood-chilling feeling told him that he was in danger. Could he always smell danger? Feel it like Inosuke did. Hear it like Zenitsu did. Whatever the case, he could see a terrifying aura, like a fox that had just cornered its prey. Its red eyes bore into his back as they promised a swift death. Just as the lightning bolt shot forwards, the red-haired swordsman, following his instincts, ducked just in time, barely evading decapitation. The entire pillar came sliding down to the side, its base cut clean off from the blade that the foxman wielded. The crowd looked in complete bewilderment as the stone construct was cleaved by a single slash. Ibri went crazy, but Tanjiro tuned him out, instead admiring the skill required when he remembered that he was still in a match. Looking around, he could see that Bell was already aiming at him, preparing to unleash another thunderclap and flash on him. Rolling off to the side, he barely evaded the slash that tore through the earthen ground. He barely had the time to turn around to see that Bell was a step away and had switched back to the water-breathing style, bringing his blade down to perform the 8th form. Tanjiro immediately countered with the first form, only for Bell, much to his surprise, to change the form midway and do a wheel that deflected his sword downward while the white-haired beast person flew up and landed right behind the demon slayer and delivered a kick to the back of his head. Gah! The red-haired swordsman went flying and landed several meters after, his face roughly meeting the dirt and ground. Like he always did though, Tanjiro got back on his feet, holding his nose as it let a steady stream of blood flow down his face. I need to dash, stop thinking. Huh. You adapt really fast and you think very quickly. It's amazing, really. But the issue is that you think too much. And when you do think that much, you freeze, hesitate, slow down, or even completely lose awareness of your surroundings. Tanjiro listened closely to what his adversary said and began seeing himself in the very situations he described. Your quick thinking has often saved you, but it came with luck. You yourself told me in your tale of your fights against the demons. With Hantengu, for example. You were too engrossed thinking about the why and how he split that you didn't notice the fourth one flying around until it grabbed you. What if instead of sound it had lightning powers? You might be dead. You can't rely on luck to save you every time, unfortunately. It doesn't come attached with a string every time you stop to think. Tanjiro knew he was right and couldn't refute his reasoning. I'm not saying that you have necessarily stopped thinking, but perhaps you should learn how to move while thinking. Let your body move on its own. Train your instincts and let your muscles act on its own. Once again, you yourself told me. When you fought Daki, in your enraged state, you didn't think. You just acted. You put everything, energy and mind, into one thought. To slash and cut your enemy. And you were unstoppable. He knew very well that unless he gave it his all, he'd have no chance to defeat Bell. Until now he had shown that he had the clear advantage when it came to skill and power. If only he could replicate the conditions to make his mark manifest and his blade turn red, then perhaps he could show something of worthy to Bell. That's right, no more holding back. He tightened his grip on the hilt of his sword and prepared to unleash his ace in the hole, the Hinakami Kagura. Seeing the determined look in his eyes, Bell knew the moment for the climax of their battle was approaching. So far, their water and thunder-breathing style exchanges had pretty much ruined the arena, shocking everyone in the arena with how strong they both were. Now it was time to completely destroy the battlefield. Hinakami Kagura. Sun Halo Dragon Head Dance. Bell sidestepped as a red flame flashed forwards, slicing his cheek and burning his flesh. With a hiss he turned to meet the stronger and faster Tanjiro. This can work. The red-haired man turned to attack, continuing his dance as the red flame that represented the sun blazed through the air. However, Bell was far from being out of surprises. That's the 11th form. Just as he had slashed at Bell, his body vanished as his afterimage was cut. Tanjiro recognized this technique very well, having used it himself against Daki. What this showed, though, was the fact that Bell could use the sun-breathing technique like him, Yorichi and Yamato, the only known users of the first breathing style so far. Feeling his hair stand up, he immediately retreated. He felt the heat graze his flesh as a flash of fire scorched the earth before him. He can use the sun-breathing style. The shock amongst the Far Eastern people was evident. Yorichi, seemingly having sensed that, was not surprised, but he was very interested in seeing how well he'd fare against Tanjiro. Amaterasu, on the other hand, grabbed Takemikazuchi by the neck and began shaking him. "He's a sun breath user, and you didn't tell me." Takemikazuchi. "I am sorry, Amaterasu-sama. I forgot." The god was sweating under the accusatory gaze of his superior. "What else have you not told me?" "Well, Bell can use most styles, including some of the old ones that have mostly died out, like the moon-breathing style, the heavenly breathing style, and the sorts, you know? Some of the ones he can't use being the rock-breathing style and the love-breathing style, albeit it's only because he doesn't have the appropriate weapon." The goddess felt a vein pop before smacking Takemikazuchi across the face. The executives of the familiar knew how important it was to the goddess, who was currently trying to bolster the familiar and breath users, particularly after the loss the familiar suffered. Knowing that Bell could use so many different styles not only made him very special, but it could also have helped attract more people to the familiar, whether Amaterasu or Takemikazuchi, hence why she was so angry with him that she didn't at least announce that. "You ignorant idiot, how many times did I tell you to inform me about things like these?" Sorry. He nursed his aching cheek, knowing he deserved it. In the meantime, Bell and Tanjiro had been going all out, clashing with arcs of fire, causing sparks and flashes to light up the setting sky. The pillars and buildings collapsed and the ground burnt black. Whether it be ground, rocks, or metal, everything in the arena got carved by the two suns fighting in the arena. The field was once again flattened to its original state. Such a passionate fight. Amazing. As usual, Rengoku was as expressive as ever. Tengen also loved how flashy the fight was, while Yorichi, Michikatsu, and Akaza admired the skill and fine techniques the two used, but they also witnessed their amazing battle auras. Mitsuru, Inosuke, Zenitsu, Nezuko, and Kanao cheered for Tanjiro, while even the two Hashiras who always had issues with Tanjiro had to admit he had grown strong, while Giyu and Shinobu silently but nervously prayed for his victory. Kani, on the other hand, was neutral, only wishing for both participants to be safe. Performing the dance, the two sent ripples across the air with each shockwave from each clash. The two moved at speeds which many struggled to keep up with, only following the flashes and rays of fire that colored the battlefield. But to the high-leveled people it was clear who was losing ground. As their swords swung down and met halfway, Tanjiro found himself pushed back. "I have to push myself even more. Remember the feeling when I was fighting against Hantengu." A pale pink flame surrounded his blade, the black steel turning bright red. Bell too followed suit and, gripping the katana harder than before, began reddening the blade. But to the red-haired warrior it was clear that this wasn't enough. He had to activate the mark, but so far he had done so unknowingly. He had no idea how to do so. Unlike Bell, who only had one scratch on his cheek and slightly singed clothing, the older Kamadu sibling was full of injuries, including a deep cut that ran down his right arm. "Tanjiro, don't think, just do. The same way you fought against the upper moons. Remember the heat that built up inside you when you swung your sword." The two stopped fighting, to everyone's confusion. They stood face to face like at the start of the match, though the arena was now a fiery wasteland. The shield protecting the spectators was also visibly strained to its limit, as cracks began appearing on the edges. That's right. The heat of the battle, the rage of the demon's injustice, and the hatred for harming Miyamoto. His blood boiled and his body warmed. The scar on his forehead transformed as it burnt into a flame-like pattern. The demon crest had manifested, and immediately he felt stronger, better and faster than ever before. Not only that, but once again his vision cleared and the world seemed to phase out of existence. He could now see Bell's body down to its muscles and bones. Seeing as he was ready, Bell matched Tanjiro's movement. The two took their stance and prepared to clash, a head-on exchange with a modified version of the first form. Dancing Flash, as Tanjiro had called it. Finn felt that the impending attack was going to be devastating. Reveria only heard her name being called out and understood what she had to do. She began chanting her strongest defense spell, hoping it would make it in time. The two lowered their stance, tensed all the muscles in their legs, and the flames gathered around their blades and bodies. Their Nichiren blades glowed bright red like the sun as they raised them. Via Shilheim. The barrier was raised just as the two darted forwards. Lightning enveloped them before shooting out like a beam of fire. Air and dust shot outwards from the force with which they pushed themselves. The area that they had each started from burst, and the two met at the center, both swinging horizontally, aiming for the other's neck. The moment their swords collided, there was a brilliant flash that blinded everyone. The moment of silence that occurred when the two clashed was stormed by a loud explosion and the shockwave that hit the very next instant. Like an earthquake, the collision shook the Colosseum and rattled the bodies of everyone in the vicinity. The artificial shield shattered, leaving Reveria's barrier to fend off the rest. Yet despite the protective spell, they could still feel the burning heat from their sun-derived techniques. What the hell was that? Holy Estrella, did you feel that? The reactions ranged from shock to even fear. When the light died down and the dust cleared, it showed that Bell had been pushed back, a cut running across his arm. The demon slayers cheered as Tanjiro finally seemed to be taking the advantage in the fight. I did it. I have to push the advantage now. Good, this is far better. But since you're giving it your all, it would be rude to not do the same. Hey, he wasn't going all out. No, that was obvious since he doesn't seem tired at all. Let's just hope he doesn't do something crazy like that time a couple of days ago. First of all, I will stop using the sun-breathing style. It's strong, but there are other styles that I'm better suited for. That, and I can't win against someone who trained with that breathing style for more than 5 years. And second, I will rely on my skills from now. Tanjiro held his breath as Bell prepared to reveal his ace in the hole, but what happened next wasn't what he expected. It wasn't what anyone in the building or watching in Orario expected. No one other than Take Mikazuchi and Amaterasu knew or would have imagined this happening even in their wildest dreams. Demons aren't the only beings strongest at night. Bell's tail raised to the sky, pointing to the rising moon, and then unfurled. The 9 gleaming fluffy limbs spread for everyone to admire. Then his skill activated. The 9 phases of the moon appeared at the end of each tail, and a pure white aura suddenly enveloped him. His red eyes glowed and his white fur shone luminously. But what Take Mikazuchi took particular notice was the white and blue star-shaped pupil transformation occurring in Bell's eyes. The serious looks on Bell morphed to completely surprised expressions. Elise, the Renard sisters, and the hostess staff were just as surprised as the rest of the audience, not having been informed of this sudden development. Many in the Amaterasu familia could now see how he had caught their goddess' attention. Meanwhile, Murakami was completely aghast at the situation. The last thing he needed, wanted, or had expected was for him to be a 9-tailed Renard. Rex too had been left speechless, albeit for a completely different reason. He had been faced with hard and undeniable proof of how strong his adversary was, and he had exceeded every imaginable expectation he had of him so far. Let's end this with the next move. Now you will see Amaterasu. When I trained Bell, he went above and beyond in everything. But my goal is to make him the ultimate swordsman, and Bell can't do that with a breath style that is given to him. Amaterasu took a moment to think before realizing the implication. You're telling me you had him make his own breath style? That's right. If you can't make something yours, then you simply need to create it so that it suits the kind of warrior you are. The only way for Bell is to develop his own style. Even I have no idea of what his progress is in this regard. But today you will see a star rise through this dark night sky. She could see the smile on Take's face. It was like looking at a teacher, yet at the same time a father, one that was proud of the achievements made by the child. To the side, Akaza's eyes widened in a delirious joy as he watched the white battle aura spark brighter than ever. What an amazing spirit. He has definitely reached the supreme territory. Just like Tanjiro, Muichiro, Yorichi, and Michikatsu. He will soon see through the world like them. Bell had always been compared to the moon from back when he was raised in his village. Initially he was going to use the moon-breathing style, but he soon realized that it wasn't enough for him. His ambition rose to the skies and his desire challenged the heavens. He shone brighter than the moon according to Take Mikazuchi, and then he realized. Like he had been referred to since arriving in Orario, he was no sun or moon. He was more than that. He was someone who looked to space, and that is when he realized what meets his needs was something beyond the sky. His inspiration for his style was thus drawn from the celestial bodies that most resembled him, the infinite stars. Astral breathing style, first form. Kuken no Setsudan. The tournament reaches the end. The next part is on its way, so unless you want to be that one person who hears about it last, like and subscribe now to stay ahead of the game. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. It's about to get epic. Thanks for listening. Catch you in the next chapter.